Driving past these woods past Webb City, you would never guess that there was a park back there that held thousands of people at one point in the 1900s. I'm Aiden Chambers, I'm a local historian, and today I'm going to be telling you the story of Lakeside Park in Webb City, Missouri. If your family's from around Carthage or Webb City or Joplin or Oronogo or Carterville, any of that area, they more than likely went to Lakeside Park, like your great-great-great-grandparents or great-great-grandparents or something like that. Nestled in the quiet woods along Center Creek between Webb City and Carterville, Lakeside Park was the most popular place to be. People by the hundreds would come here to swim, boat, watch a ball game, watch a movie, dance, play games, have picnics, or just have times with their families. When the cold weather would freeze, people would just go out there and skate along the ice. There were concession stands, game booths, a swinging bridge, and even a giant roller coaster out in the middle of the woods. I mean, look at that thing. That thing is huge. It was called the Figure 8. The Southwest Missouri Electric Railroad Company actually made the park in 1895. The record-breaking number of people that came out to Lakeside hit between 40,000 to 50,000 people on 4th of July in 1902. John Philip Sosa, the guy that made this song, yeah, he even played out there. Speaking of songs, there was even a song written about Lakeside Park called Take Me Out to Lakeside. Here's a snippet of that.
Take me to Lakeside, that beautiful place where your life seems complete.
A lot of the employees actually were there all day and night because of how busy this place was. They would just end up sleeping in tents or really any dry spot they could find. So that meant divorce was becoming a real problem for these people. Their wives were just like, yeah, I'm not going to wait on you all day, so they would just kind of leave. So the railway decided to fix that problem, and they built a hotel out there called the Lakeside Hotel, and then they also built some cottages for some of the railway employees to stay at. There was even a Lakeside school out there. Here's me next to it. It's abandoned now, but that is one of the only things that's still standing out there. My favorite Lakeside story has to be about the group of 3 boys who were sitting over by the railcar benches waiting to see a lady's ankle, because I guess that was a big turn-on back then. Well, one of these ladies had hiked up her dress just enough so these boys could see that ankle. One of them got so excited, he punched his friend in the chest. What he didn't know is that his friend's chest pocket had matches in it, and it ignited the kid immediately. I have no idea what happened to that kid. Hopefully he's okay. I could not find any other information on that story, so hope you're good out there. And for all you cold case fans, there was also some Lakeside deaths out there. That's a whole other topic for a whole other video. It's crazy to me that this place has just been forgotten to time. I mean, back then it was literally the area's silver dollar city. In October of 1935, they decided to finally let Lakeside go, and they shut the doors permanently, tearing down everything that was out there, and whatever else was left, it kind of just fell due to time. But if you walk along the creek, you can still find bottles from Lakeside Park. You can't really see the bottom. It says Joplin Mo, but you can't really see that. Yes, this is an original Coca-Cola bottle. This is an olive bottle from out there that I found probably a year ago. I mean, just tons of concession trash is still floating around in that river. I mean, everything back then was made of glass. So if you'd like to hear more about those Lakeside deaths I was talking about, let me know in the comments. Or if you just want to hear about more Webb City history, give this page a follow, and I will bring way more stories to you. That's all I got for today. Look forward to more stories, and I will see you guys in the next one. If you live in Webb City or drive down Main Street in Webb City, you'd probably never guess that this block right here held one of the most prominent hotels in Southwest Missouri for its time. I'm Aiden Chambers, I'm a local historian, and today I will be discussing the Leaf Laranoy, May Boyd, and Newland Hotel shooting. This was the Newland Hotel. It sat on what was the Newland block right on Main Street where the theater is now. With shopping centers on the bottom and rooms and more on the top, this hotel was perfect for its time. It's hard to find any interior photos of the Newland, but I did find this one, and it kind of just gives you an idea of the people that would go there. This hotel attracted thousands of people and gave downtown Webb City a lot of life. The Newland also had its fair share of outlaws, crooks, and criminals, and with that, I'd like to introduce my friend and expert on that subject, Scott Sarley.
Hey everyone, my name is Scott Sarley. I'm another local historian in the area. I like to research lots of things. Recently I've been on a criminal hack, a lot of our guilty pleasure. There's a gentleman by the name of Leaf Laranoy who probably should be more known than he is. Today we're going to tell you one of the stories of his life. So, Lee was born alongside his twin Lynn in Webb City, Missouri, to Thomas Laranoy and Sarah. Lee, like a lot of other young men in the era, were trusted with a lot of things, including guns. One day Lee was cleaning his dad's .38 revolver and it went off, going through his left kneecap, exiting out the other side of his leg. This was the first of many bullets to go through Mr. Leaf Laranoy. Fast forward to October 21st, 1914. So, as Aiden just explained, the Newland Hotel was a social hotspot. The Buckfoot Gang, I don't know if any of you heard of them, but they were there a lot. Tonight, they were having a dance. This is when Lee would take some more bullets, this time from the gun of his lover. Just a few days after his 20th birthday, Lee would be surprised by May Boyd, a woman who he'd been seeing off and on, leaving the house of another woman. May Boyd went there with the intention of finding Lee. He wasn't there. She ran into some folks, one of them being Mr. Ed Everett. She told Ed, "I'm looking for Lee, and I've got a gun." Ed immediately went looking for Lynn, who was at the dance, Lee's twin brother, to tell him May was looking to kill his brother. Not finding Lee at the dance triggered something in May. She knew exactly where he'd be. Lee had been secretly seeing another woman that was in town boarding at a woman's house on West Doherty. May knew this, so she left the dance, and she went and hid down the road outside of a grocery store for Lee to walk by. Sure enough, she was right. Around 11 p.m., here came Lee strolling down the sidewalk from 713 West Doherty Street. She patiently waited in the doorway of the grocery store for Lee to come by. When Lee arrived, she sprung out and started shooting. 2 shots, the first shot going through the shoulder. Lee, out of fear, began fleeing. She shot 3 more times, one of the shots going through his left lung. He was hit twice out of the 5 shots. Lee kept running, trying to get away, and fell at the front yard of the Bash residence at Liberty and West Doherty. Lynn, Lee's brother, who had been informed by Ed Everett that May was looking for his brother, sprang into action, trying to warn Lee. As he was turning the corner onto Doherty, he heard the shots ring. By the time he got there, he saw May sitting in front of Lee, consoling him. After hiding the gun, May, out of either fear or guilt, ran to Lee's side to try to help him. He seemed to be dying. Laying there dying, Lee, Lynn, May waited for the police to arrive. The police arrived, and after the loose lips of May at the dance, she was arrested for the shooting of Lee. Lee and May both denied that May was the shooter. Lee, clinging on to life, was taken to the Jane Shin Hospital in Webb City. The odds of him living were very, very slim. May, on the other hand, was taken to the Webb City Police Department and was questioned about the whole incident, where she denied the whole thing, said it was not her, she didn't know who it was. Officer Michaels left the room. He comes back a few minutes later and informed everybody in the room, "Boys, I was just informed Lee's gonna die." And that's when May lost it. Now sobbing uncontrollably, May confessed to the entire thing. She said that she had been holding Lee up, taking care of him, and he was doing this to her the entire time. She said that she had found out the Saturday before and would have killed him at the time if she had had a gun then. She also said that Lee had slapped her and had abused her, and she was at her wit's end. Somehow, miraculously, Lee fought through and survived the shooting. He was there to go to court when May was being accused of shooting him, denied that she was the shooter, and she was acquitted. This story is just the beginning of Lee's crazy life. Later on, we see him running around with one of the Barker boys in Webb City, robbing banks, escaping prison, even murdering somebody.
Thank you, Scott, for that insane story. It's hard to believe that any of this happened right here in Webb City. This is only the beginning of Lee's crazy stories, with much more to come. If you guys would like to hear more about those, leave us some comments. Follow this account to see more Jasper County historic stories, and I will see you guys next time. Do you ever drive in Orinoco and wonder,
what is that thing?
Well, it was actually a bank vault that belonged to this bank right here, and it was robbed by Bonnie and Clyde and many other criminals. But I'm here to tell you guys the best story, the Bonnie and Clyde story. I'm Aiden Chambers, I'm a local historian, and today I will be telling you about the time Bonnie and Clyde's gang robbed the Farmers and Miners Bank in Orinoco. It was a cool November day in Orinoco in 1932. The streets were busy with miners, streetcars were packed with workers, and people were just out and about, when along comes a stolen Chevy sedan. Orinoco residents watched as 2 men exited their vehicle and entered the Farmers and Miners Bank of Orinoco. Cashier Robert A. Norton was working when Clyde Barrow and Hollis Hale entered the bank with a sawed-off shotgun and automatic pistol. Frank Hardy waited outside of the bank in a Chevy that they had stolen from Carthage previously. Norton was not new to robberies, however, because this was the 4th time that this had happened in the 11 years that he had owned the bank. So, obviously being experienced in this field, he dropped right behind the desk, grabbed out his pistol, and began firing. The bandits then returned fire, but didn't know that the back side of the vault was also protected by a steel plate. Norton's gun then jammed, so he had no other choice but to surrender. The bandits broke through the glass door, cutting one of their hands in the process, and stepped right in behind the counter. Clyde approached R.A. Norton and put the gun right to his ribs, probably about to kill him, when Hales interfered, saying, "Leave him alone, let's get the money, and get out of here." As they were leaving the bank, they were dropping blood-stained dollar bills and silver coins. Carl Kapp, who had returned from a hunting trip, was outside working on his rifle. He heard yells that the bank was being robbed, so he grabbed his rifle and joined Wetzel in running over to the bank. They then ducked in an alley and waited for the bandits to drive by, so when the bandits drove by, they began firing. Well, the Barrow Gang obviously didn't take that too kindly, and they busted out a window and started firing right back. While firing back, they ended up hitting a gas truck's fender, radiator, and dash, seen right here. The bullets barely missed Wetzel by a few inches and hit a downspout right above Carl Kapp's head. As the bandits drove away, Wetzel and Kapp emptied their guns, but had little to no effect. Carl was later quoted saying that he was never madder in his life and that this encounter was way too close for comfort. The bandits ended up escaping and abandoned the Chevy just over on Ivy Road, where Bonnie was waiting for them in a black stolen Ford V8. Something I found kind of funny is someone had actually stopped on the side of the road and asked Bonnie if she needed help during this, and that's clearly not what she needed. After abandoning the Chevy, the gang ended up heading west to either Texas or Carthage. Another funny thing about this is whenever the cashier was being interviewed after this, he had said that it was not Pretty Boy Floyd who robbed the bank because he had studied Pretty Boy Floyd in photos before this. Hale was later captured in Texas and sentenced to 20 years for robbery, and 4 years later in 1937, Frank Hardy was captured in Waco, Texas and sentenced to 10 years for robbery. This would not be the gang's last time in Orinoco, as in January 1933 they kidnapped Thomas Purcell, a Springfield police officer, and while driving towards Oklahoma, they needed a car battery in the middle of the night. They checked Webb City and Joplin with no luck at all, so they ended up coming to Orinoco to steal a car battery. In the next few months, the gang would end up having a famous shootout over in Joplin, Missouri. So if you want to hear more about that, let me know in the comments. Follow this page to hear more Jasper County Forgotten Tales. Comment which stories you want us to cover, and I will see you guys next time. This right here is a geode. You've probably seen these before at like a cave museum or some sort of gift shop somewhere. Now imagine one so huge that you could walk around inside of it. Well, for Joplin folks in the 1890s to the 1930s, that was a possibility. Because what most people don't know is Joplin, Missouri is home to one of the biggest underground geodes in the world. Today I'm going to tell you all about this right here, Crystal Cave in Joplin, Missouri, one of the biggest underground geodes ever discovered. I'm Aiden Chambers, I'm a local historian, and welcome back to Jasper County Tall Tales. The year was 1893, and miner James Roach was digging a mine shaft over where West 4th Street is located today when he made the incredible discovery of Crystal Cave. James had found a 6-story room with all the walls and ceilings covered with calcite crystals, some up to 22 inches. Along with that room, he found 2 small chambers above that. The large, beautiful room was around 225 feet long, 55 feet in width, with a ceiling height of 10 to 15 feet. James and his friend Henry were so shocked with what they had found, so they had obviously preserved it. The cave didn't really become a tourist spot up until 1907, when the streetcar line was added onto 4th Street. That's when the Joplin and Pittsburgh Railway Company decided to start bringing people out to the cave. At this point, further development of the cave was only natural, so an excavation began. They put an 80-foot incline from the surface going down into the cave, and they began work on an entrance building. It was time for the public to see this beauty, so on the hot day of July 4th, 1908, the cave entrance was completed, and Crystal Cave was open to the public. 25-cent 30-minute tours began down in the cave, and you could purchase your tickets right here at this ticket window. Tours, social hangouts, card parties, dances, meetings, and more took place down there. Crystal Cave had a short 22-year span. Nobody really knows whenever the cave shut down, but research indicates it shut down around 1930. That same year, 1930, Bill Stewart and others were actually planning on operating a mushroom farm down there, so they set up all their tables down there, had everything ready to go, and they left on a Friday night, came back that Monday. The cave was filled with water because the nearby pumps for the mines had stopped, and nobody has seen Crystal Cave since. Until 1998, a new effort was made to see this beauty again by the Tri-State Mineral Museum and Joplin City officials. On May 30th, 1998, the city installed a 6-inch inspection pipe leading into Crystal Cave. The next month, a video camera was lowered down into the pipe, and we got our first view of Crystal Cave in over half a century. It sucks that we're not going to be able to see this cave again, because if you were going to try to drain all that water in there, all the businesses along 4th Street and probably around that would all collapse. And if you tried to add an iron curtain around that to prevent that collapsing, that would be about $200 million or something around that. So I guess the only thing to do is just let nature take it back. It's hard to believe that this cave has been forgotten to time and that there are so little photos of it. There's a few postcards here and there, but that's pretty much it. Crystal Cave is just one of the craziest stories of Joplin, so if you want to hear more about Joplin stories, let me know in the comments, or if you want to hear more about stories in the Jasper County area, let me know in general. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next time. If you live in Webb City or around Webb City, you've probably been to this park right here, Hatton Park. What you probably don't know is that it used to look like this. I'm Aiden Chambers, and join me today as we talk about Webb City's lost college and Hatton Park's great history. The year was 1893 and the Baptist people had just decided they wanted to build their new college in Webb City, Missouri, the leading zinc capital in the world. And this right here is the cornerstone they laid for that college in 1893. The college was constructed by this guy right here, A.R. Nesbitt. The beautiful structure had nearly 100 rooms, all heated by steam and lit up by electricity. They even had hot and cold water on every floor. They also had a huge auditorium. The college officially opened its doors in September of 1896, exceeding 100 students, offering full academic and preparatory courses for both male and female students. The women in the college, however, had some strict rules they had to follow on the grounds. The ground behind me, the rules were pretty strict. No young lady was allowed to leave school grounds without permission. Visiting, shopping, even walking was supervised with someone connected to the college. 0 visitors during school hours, and especially young gentlemen weren't allowed, like they were not fooling around. The building was beautiful and a bragging point for Webb City, and rightfully so. With its third year reaching 100 students, 200 were easily expected the following year. In the year 1902, the school was changed to a young ladies' college, with the name being Webb City College for Young Ladies. The building had many changes throughout the years, and in May of 1903, it proved to be a financial failure. The school then turned into the Great Western Normal and Business College. This school offered so many amazing courses, I'm not going to read them all, so there you go. Then in June 1903, a small glove factory opened up in the basement and gave some kids work during their college years. Along that, summer school classes were also taught there. In 1909, the building was converted to an apartment building, with about 4 families living there in 1910. Then the next year, in 1911, W.M. Allison and his wife Berta ran an orphanage from the building, as you can see here. It's obviously terrifying. You may remember this right here, the Newland Hotel. It was talked about in one of my previous videos. Well, that and the college were going to be used as a church college for a little bit, but those plans fell through. The last owner that took control of the building was a pitcher mining man, and he tore the building down, taking everything for breaks. Then in 1933, along comes a local rich man and mine owner, Mr. Amos Davis Hatton, to scoop up this ground. It can't just go to waste. Along with that, a pool was added into the ground from the old college's basement, and this huge golf course that many still remember today was put all around this area. The pool finally closed in 1966, and then years later it was filled and capped, leaving the pool house behind, along with all the memories made by Webb City folks. The land that occupied the golf course was eventually turned into all these houses you're seeing. It's so crazy to me that this college was forgotten about and nobody really remembers it. I mean, there's the pool house from the actual pool, and that's the only thing that's pretty much still standing. I'm happy to say that that's only the tip of the iceberg for the Webb City College stories and the stories around Hatton Park, even Amos Davis Hatton himself. So if you'd like to hear more about those, give this page a follow. Also, leave a comment for what other Jasper County stories you'd like to hear, and I will see you guys next time. I'm doing some more research on the college, and I figured out that that cornerstone that I talked about previously in the video, there was a time capsule put underneath that whenever the college first opened, and whenever they tried to get it back out, whenever they were tearing down the college, it had been stolen. So if you guys want a video on that, I will definitely do that. A few weeks ago, I made this video right here, and it was robbed by Bonnie and Clyde and many other criminals. And that video led me to meet this guy right here, Jeff Hall. You see, Jeff is a Bonnie and Clyde enthusiast, and he's actually friends with some of the museum curators down in Gibbsland, Louisiana, where the Bonnie and Clyde Museum is. You see, Jeff is all the way from Texas, and he came up to Oronogo just to figure out more information on the Bonnie and Clyde bank robbery. Well, one day, whenever I'm heading to lunch with my dad, I get a call from the historical section of the library here in Webb City. They told me this gentleman had been looking for some more information on the Bonnie and Clyde Oronogo bank robbery, so naturally I sped all the way over to the library to meet him. Well, whenever I got there, me and Jeff got to talking. Many other people thought that the bank was actually in this alleyway right here, when in reality it actually just sat on this corner right here. I told Jeff that the vault was still standing. He didn't know that, so he excitedly got in his car, I got in mine, and we met each other down in Oronogo. The condition of the vault was pretty bad. It had been used as a trash dump for I don't know how many years. We got a hold of that landowner. We had a few discussions with him, and he did not care what happened to that thing. So we take it apart. Yes, you heard that right. Me and Jeff started to take apart the vault, cinder block by cinder block. You may be asking why we were doing this? Well, now it's going to go to a new home in Gibbsland, Louisiana, to this right here, the Bonnie and Clyde Ambush Museum. Now I'm going to pass the mic over to Jeff, where he can talk about what we're doing in a little bit more in detail.
Well, hey, my name is Jeff Hill. I used to be a former newscaster back several years ago, and when I was at the TV station doing stories, I ran into Bonnie and Clyde's family. Clyde's nephew, his name was Buddy Barrow, and Bonnie's niece, her name was Raylene. I think her name was Billy Ray Parker when she was young. As time goes by, I started working with them to save a bunch of their buildings. You probably just saw a few years ago where they tore down the Barrow filling station. We were actually working really hard to save that, and unfortunately that was a bad failure. However, we were able to save the Lily McBride house. Well, as time goes by, I come to find the Oronogo Bank. And the story about me finding the Orinoco Bank is almost as exciting as the robbery itself. Well, probably not. When I first got to Orinoco and went down to City Hall, the people down there told me this approximate location, but we weren't sure exactly where it was. So I thought it was this structure behind me, which turns out to be a bar. And so when I got here, I just figured I was wasting my time, and I figured that the entire thing had been torn down. Well, I get over to the Webb City Library, and this fella came up to me and said, well, you know, that men's room that you were standing around, that's actually the vault. If it weren't for him, I would have no idea what the vault was, because nobody else in town seemed to have any answers. And so as you can see, we've had to dismantle it piece by piece. It's been quite a lot of work. It's actually gone really well. We were really scared that it would crumble and break apart. We've had a little bit of damage, but it really hasn't been bad. We found an old bank plate that we believe is the plate of a floor, a light switch plate, possible door handle, so we are finding some little artifacts there. Anyway, come join us as we ship all of this stuff by truck and trailer down to the Gippsland Museum. It's called the Bonnie and Clyde Ambush Museum. Thank you, and thanks for joining us, and thanks to Aiden.
It took about 2 weeks to get this vault fully disassembled, and man, it was really difficult. Jeff had to label every single brick, and the rain unfortunately washed it away, so it kind of turned into a nightmare. But Jeff and I did not give up. We kept working at it, and we finally got all the bricks loaded up. And Jeff was out there more than me. He was out there almost every single day, getting all these bricks, taking everything apart. Him and I both think that it is very important that this piece was not torn down, and now that it's going to a good home where people can appreciate it. Back in Louisiana, they're going to try to put the vault back together as best as they can, or they're going to do a seating area with it. It's expected that it's going to take around 6 months to do it. I mean, rightfully so. So now whenever you drive by where the old Orinoco Bank sat and wonder where that big cinder block structure is, it's right here down in Louisiana. Fortunately, we ended up getting quite a bit of media attention from this, and we would really like to shed more light on that Bonnie and Clyde Museum down in Louisiana. I mean, I haven't been down there personally, but I will be going there next month, so you guys will definitely be seeing a video on that. Like I said, we started getting quite a bit of media attention from it. I mean, we even made it into the front page of the Joplin Globe newspaper. But along with that, we ended up on the news. We had some articles published. I mean, it was really cool. So I'm happy to say we pretty much saved a piece of history. Speaking of media attention, this account is about to hit 1,000 followers as I'm making this video. I can't believe that. Thank you guys so much. You have no idea how much I appreciate you. I didn't even make this account 6 months ago, and it's already at almost 1,000 with my last video getting 20,000 views. Thank you guys so much. I'll put some more updates on the vault as progress moves along, but for the next few weeks you can expect a lot more Jasper County stories and videos. Also, if you're ever down in Louisiana or around that area, definitely stop by the Bonnie and Clyde Museum. They have crazy artifacts. That's all I got for you guys today. It was a short video, but it was pretty important that I got it out there. Follow this page to hear more Jasper County stories and comment which ones you want to hear. I will see you guys next time. This right here is Coin Hatton, son of Amos Hatton, who we've talked about here on the show before. On the night of May 16th, 1931, this building behind me would become Coin Hatton's last stop. He was later murdered by James Creighton. I'm Aiden Chambers, I'm a local historian, and come with me as we explore the Coin Hatton Webb City murder case. This right here is James Creighton, and you see James was actually not from here. He was only hiding here because of a Nebraska bank robbery him and some gangsters pulled off in February of 1931. During his time here, he actually moved around quite a bit. He was at a home on Byers Avenue, then 4th Street, and then lastly 708 Pearl Avenue where he would get caught. Each time he would rent these places, he would tell the owners the same thing. He was in the oil business and his name was W.H. Gears. He actually ended up giving several people fake names. While Creighton was staying, he met some interesting folks, including a Webb City waitress named Doris, an ex-convict named Mickey, and his wife. On the night of May 16th, James Creighton met Doris at the Webb City drugstore, and they called the Mickey couple to have them both come pick them up so they could have a night of fun. They all went to Setzer's Lunch for some dinner. After that, the gang goes to another drugstore in Joplin, then over to the Carey couple's home so they can play cards for a little bit. After they're finished with that, they decide to go over to the Hub drugstore where Mickey and his wife actually get into a fight, and he hits her with a bottle and cuts her arm. This fight more than likely broke out due to the fact that they had been drinking. So, back to Morgan's drugstore in Webb City they go, but first they have to stop by Doris's place because she had blood on her dress from Mickey's wife. After Doris changes, they arrive to the Morgan drugstore in Webb City. They park their vehicle north of the alley on the east side of the street, behind the drugstore. This same night, Coin Hatton was driving his wife and baby around. They get home around 9 or 9:30 and put the baby to sleep, and Hatton decides to go over to the Morgan drugstore to get some sandwiches. This decision would unfortunately be Coin Hatton's last decision. Mickey and his wife get out of the car with Doris and Creighton following. This is whenever they see Hatton walking from the Morgan drugstore over to his car. Doris may have started talking to Mr. Hatton. That part is sort of fuzzy. The story actually changes quite a lot whenever you read these people's accounts. The people they interviewed would sometimes just change their story up. Creighton even tried to blame Mr. Hatton on starting the altercation. He said he had accused him of being out with his girl and even slapped him a few times, but this did not happen. If you read all the other witnesses' reports, nobody said they saw that. What really happened is Creighton was walking, he brushed by Hatton, and Hatton grabbed the left side of his coat and asked him if he was looking for any trouble. Creighton then said, "I beg your pardon," pulled out a pistol, and shot Hatton right in the chest. There was a pause of gunfire. Hatton grabbed his chest and just said, "Oh." Just then, Mr. Creighton finished Hatton off with 2 more shots. He put his pistol into his belt, adjusted his coat and hat, and walked rapidly to the front of the drugstore. Hatton lied there with 3 shots, dead by a tree. Creighton then goes into the drugstore looking for the carries, and then he exits out this door right back here. He then either drove off with the carries in the back of the store, or he ran a half block west where the carries were for some unknown reason. Probably due to the fact that they hear gunshots. But remember, the accounts change and the stories are a little fuzzy, so. Either way, he escaped right back to Joplin and the carries dropped him off. I couldn't find much where Doris says where she went, but I'm gonna assume that she probably ran off during this. But she did end up testifying against him later on. The next morning comes along and boom, he gets caught at the place we previously mentioned on Pearl Avenue. Mickey ended up going to the police that morning and told the police that he drove Hatton and Doris over to Webb City. That didn't go too well for him because he ended up getting in trouble too. Later the same day, Creighton gets arrested. He admitted to going to Webb City, but he did not admit to killing Hatton. However, on May 18th, the coroner's jury found Creighton to be the slayer of Hatton. Multiple witnesses saw this event and even testified against him. On May 19th, Creighton was charged with first-degree murder and he caved in, giving his real name James or Jimmy Creighton. He was 26 years old and born in Oklahoma. He even had a criminal history in the past. He admitted he was wanted in criminal connection over to the Hastings, Nebraska bank robbery that he had committed in February. When asked why he shot Hatton, a few reasons actually came up, but the main one being that he couldn't afford to be imposed by anybody since he was undercover for that Hastings, Nebraska bank robbery. Creighton's trial went underway in June of 1931, just a month after the death. Sentencing on this guy would not be light. I mean, he did kill one of Webb City's most prominent men's sons, so... June 26th, the jury found Creighton guilty and sentenced him to hang. Creighton was then taken to the state prison. The court reversed the verdict on the ground that the judge should have granted a change of venue. Creighton then had a second trial in January of 1933 in Barton County. This time the court found him guilty, but they gave him a lighter sentence of life imprisonment. What's even more crazy is that this guy gets out in 1956 due to him telling on other prisoners for a separate trial. The Missouri governor paroled him because if he went back to prison, he would surely be killed for ratting out other inmates. So, for some reason, the guy gets away free. And that is the last time I've heard of Creighton. I can't find a grave or a death date or anything, but I wasn't really specifically looking for that information, so. This is a case I've wanted to cover for a while now. The Hatton family history has always had stories that catch my attention, and this story is just one I've wanted to dig up really deep into and know what really actually happened that night. This is just one of the craziest shooting stories from back then in Webb City's history, with a really crazy shootout story coming soon. I would have had it out sooner, but this one's taking a lot more digging and research than I thought it would, but that's okay because I like to give you guys the actual accurate information of what happened. So that one is probably going to be the craziest story yet, so stay tuned for that. Also, if you own or know about a location that you'd like to know the history about, let me know and I'd be more than happy to check it out. Obviously, I love finding these old stories, so I'm always open to suggestions. Let me know what other stories you guys would like to hear from around here, and I will see you guys next time. Hey guys, it's Aiden Chambers, and if you're new here, welcome. If you keep up with my Instagram or with any of my social medias, then you would have seen this right here. Some very old Joplin footage from 1916 was discovered recently. Now, I've had a few people actually ask me, what are these buildings up here that are no longer there? Well, these buildings actually were some of Joplin's most prominent locations back then. So I'd like to tell you guys where these buildings were and what the locations look like now. So first, we have the Keystone Hotel. This beauty was built in 1892 and was a symbol of Joplin's thriving economy back then. It was an extremely fancy hotel, just like its neighbors. It was built by Elias Zollinger Wallower, and I probably 110% just said that guy's name wrong. The structure stood tall for many years before being torn down in the 1960s as a part of an urban renewal project. Now, all this right here is the Worth Block, built by James H. Worth. This building housed so many businesses over the years, including my absolute favorite Joplin spot, the House of Lords. The House of Lords is a famous bar in Joplin with some insane history behind it and just crazy stories that I will 100% be doing a video on very soon. Trust me guys, there's some stories from the House of Lords that are just absolutely crazy. So I would definitely stay tuned for that in the near future. Then we got these two guys, the Frisco and the Chrisman building. The Frisco, being built in 1913, was Joplin's first modern office building. Also, during the height of the railroad era, up to 26 trains stopped here daily. Then, in 1917, we have the Chrisman. They were a dry goods store, and actually both buildings are still there, and you probably pass them every day along with these ones that you see in the video. All that history still standing pretty strong. This is the Connor Hotel, and if you're from Joplin, you've more than likely heard some tales from the Connor. The doors opened for the $1 Million Hotel in 1908, and it was built by Thomas Connor. The hotel was Joplin's most gorgeous building. I mean, it even had a marble staircase inside that is said to have cost over $250,000. This building sat right where the library sits now, and it actually collapsed in 1978, one day before it was supposed to be demolished.
So the rescue effort here at the Connor continues under some of the worst weather conditions possible, in hopes of another miracle or two. Dave Kester reporting for Eyewitness News.
Trapping 3 workers inside and only leaving 1 survivor. I will also be doing a video explaining that event pretty soon and exactly what all happened there, so if you guys are interested in that, let me know. Lastly, we got this building, and for this one, I couldn't find a thing on it, so that's where you all come in. I need help finding out what Joplin business this is, all the information on it, anything I can get. It really sucks that nothing at all from these buildings has been preserved over the years. I mean, just literally nothing at all. Nothing. At all. I lied. I do have artifacts. This one is one of my favorite pieces. This is a spoon from the Connor Hotel. I mean, the designs on this spoon are just absolutely beautiful. This is a piece I got at an estate sale a few months ago. This is a House of Lords mug. I love this thing so much. I used to have one of these, but I donated it over to the museum. It looked a little bit different than this. And of course, I have a Keystone Hotel postcard. Along with all that stuff, I have so many Connor Hotel tiles, including this one right behind me, and then all of these. Then this giant guy, which is way too heavy to bring into my house. Joplin and Webb City antiques are definitely my favorite to collect. I mean, there's just so much history around here that's forgotten. This wasn't really a full-on episode. I kind of just wanted to show you guys those locations and what they look like now. Stay tuned for the next few weeks because I have a brand new video series coming out that I think you guys are going to love. Although this video is not a collection video, I mean, I'm just going to use any excuse I can to show you guys some cool Joplin pieces. If there's any stories you guys want to hear, just leave me a comment or shoot me a message. I'll see you guys next time.
Hi.
Okay, so how was it growing up knowing that you were the descendants of the most infamous couple ever?
Actually, I didn't know. And when I was in school, I was shunned. Children would tell me that they couldn't play with me, and I didn't know why.
Yeah.
But it was all fresh back then. And it took me a long time to realize that it was not the kids, it was their parents. Yes, my birth name was Bonnie Ray Parker. After my aunt Billie Jean changed my name, then everything was fine after that. Yeah, nobody knew who we were. They were killed in May 1934, and I was born in October 1934. So I'm sure, my mother named me that as a tribute to Bonnie. My birth certificate still says Bonnie Ray Parker.
How much did their stories from their crime spree affect your day-to-day life?
It was not discussed. My grandmother and dad and aunt, they had already lived through it. It was just not discussed. Yeah. I know people find that hard to believe that it's not an everyday conversation, but it was not. They had already lived through it, and I was just a little kid. So,
yeah. How do you feel about the way Bonnie and Clyde are portrayed in the media, and how do you and your family view their deaths today?
Everyone has an opinion, and they're certainly entitled to it. Bonnie and Clyde both came from good families, good, hardworking families, and their parents didn't understand and certainly not condone how their life turned out. But they were their kids, and they loved them. Yes. They were still family, and they loved them. Yes. And they were very close to their kid, and the kids stayed. Bonnie and Clyde stayed close to the families, even though they had to meet. Yes. There was time that Clyde would drop Bonnie off to spend the day with her mother, and then come back and pick her up. Yep. Go visit his mom.
He did that several times.
Yeah.
Do you think that they would be happy about the way they're portrayed today, or how they're viewed?
I think they would be pleased with their part in history, that the history part has kind of overridden the bad part that they did. The history seems to be the drawing thing of people. And of course the love story, which was a true love story. Oh. So I think they would be, pleased with that. And of course, there's some that have,
different opinions.
yeah. Opinions are like noses. Everybody's got one, so they're entitled to it. She wanted to be popular. She wanted to be out there, movie star and all like that. I'm not sure that this was what she had in mind to become popular with. She's a very loving, caring person, and she loved children. And she loved Billie Jean's 2 children, Buddy and Jackie. Now she needs to be with him,
And as far as I know, you're making efforts to make
have been, right. The cemetery where she's buried, the guy doesn't want her moved, and he's been fighting me. We've been at this for about 6 years, and we've won twice in court last year. And then he turned around and filed an appeal in the appellate court. So we've been waiting on that for a year now. And the thing is, he has no case. He uses her for advertising. So he, doesn't want her moved. And he's done everything that he can do. We have attorneys, working on it. Even the judge asked him, "Why are you doing this?" He just made I don't think she has a good enough case. That was it. For a long time, he would not admit, I am the last direct descendant of Bonnie Parker. I'm it. He never admitted it at all through these years until last year at the judge, at the court thing. And it's the first time he's ever admitted. He has pulled people out of the air saying that they had, more say, than I had. Right. Yeah. He kept saying, well, just give me a court order. That's all I need. Well, we got the court order, and then he filed for an appeal. Then that was denied. And, the thing is, he has no case. He has no right. It's ironic. My mother's mother and stepfather and brother are buried out there, too. And I said, well, I'm leaving him 6 more people. I just want one out of the, out of the group. Right, I'm leaving him a whole bunch. When we talked to him the first time, he said, who is it that you want to disinter? When they said Bonnie Parker, he just went stone silent, there for a minute. I said, there's got to be a hole in his ceiling there. And the very first words when he came back was, her mother said, yes, her mother did say that. She felt that way, and you can certainly understand her feelings at that time. Yeah. But her mother was not thinking 90 years later, the place in history that, good or bad, they're there. And it was well known that she wanted to be with Clyde. She expected to be with Clyde, and that's the way it should be. And I said, I'm sure that if my grandmother is not happy with me, we'll have a come to Jesus talk when we meet again. And we've got so many people helping us and, and concerned. And this guy, he's dragging it out as long as he can. The attorneys and told me, said, well, he's mad at you because you won't drop it. And being a woman, I just cannot let that man win. I just cannot let him win. At this point, it's just the right thing to do. Mr. Barrow, that space, he saved that. That's Bonnie's space. Yeah. He saved that for Bonnie. That space has been Bonnie's. She needs to be there. I want to do something like Bonnie and Clyde together again. A stone like that. Nice. Yeah. So anyway, but we're fighting.
Well, you've got so many people on your side.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, how was Blanche, and what are some of your favorite memories with Blanche?
Blanche was just a hoot. Very self-sufficient, nice, neat, funny lady. A little short, gray-haired lady, very nice lady, lady, but very witty, and she had a green thumb that she could throw anything. You could just spit a seed over and start growing. She loves fish, as Billie Jean. She and Jean and Marie all lived nice, quiet, productive lives after their early shenanigans.
Yeah. What's something about the Barrow gang or the Barrow family or the Parker family that you would like everybody to know?
The Parker family and the Barrow family too. They were good, hardworking people. And I know that Bonnie wanted people to know that she did not smoke cigars. She did not. She wanted that known.
Yeah.
I guess that's, you know. Bonnie did not smoke cigars because that is the very picture with her smoking that cigar. An officer that they kidnapped, he asked her if there was anything she wanted to know, and she said, "Tell people I did not smoke cigars."
She did.
So he told it, now I'm telling you.
Chances are, if you live in or around Webb City, then you've definitely been to this theater right here, and you've more than likely seen a few movies there. But have you heard the amazing history behind this Webb City gem? From advertising giving away a live baby to hypnotists coming to perform live, this is the history of Webb City's last standing movie theater. Our story begins with my favorite Webb City location, the Newland Hotel. You see, at one point the Newland Hotel may have been the place to be, but as the 40s and late 50s it was kinda looking pretty bad. Pretty much a big eyesore in Webb City's downtown area. The hotel was burnt by many fires and was pretty dangerous at this point to be sitting there. However, it's not getting torn down yet. The bottom is gonna get more modernized. The year is 1946 and it's time for improvement. On February 22nd, in the next few days, the Webb City Sentinel would advertise this right here, the grand opening of the Dickinson Movie Theater. Opening day was scheduled for Friday, March 1st, 1946. Two films were shown on opening day, Cowboy Canteen and Wildfire. Carl Junction actually tipped their hats to us in the paper, saying the Dickinson had the finest and most beautiful theater in the tri-state district. The theater was opened by Glenn Dickinson, who also had a theater in Joplin that you've probably passed before and now it just sits abandoned. The new theater boasted of having scientific cooling and heating, amazing new RCA sound, airflow, upholstered seats, and more. On opening day, some performances were held here at the theater, including the Webb City High School Band performing, and Art Perry and his pals making an appearance. Free flowers were also given over to the ladies. For the next few years, the Dickinson would show several moving pictures, and here's just a few from the newspaper's ads that I could find. Also, to show you how much times have changed, this ad right here says that if you were to make a purchase over at the theater, they would give you some free fireworks, so they were pretty much just telling the kids, here you go blow your hands up in the street. If we're talking about theaters, then it's only appropriate we talk about the area's theater man himself, Mr. Larry Larson. Larry Larson built and designed several theaters around our area, including Joplin's old Fox Theater, now a Christian church, Webb City's old Civic Theater, the Civic Drive-In, and of course, this beauty here. He also had ownership of the Mystic Theater, renaming it the Junior Theater. Now you may be wondering, where was that at? Well, you've more than likely eaten some breakfast over there because now it is the Webb City Cafe. Larry Larson's health began to fail in the late 1940s, which led to his son Howard Larson taking on more responsibility for the business. February of 1950, Larry Larson unfortunately passed away at 57 years old. This is when Howard Larson comes more into the picture, purchasing the theater in 1950, renaming it the Larson in honor of his father. He was also the co-owner and the manager of the Civic and Junior Theaters. Now that he purchased the Dickinson Theater, he planned to run it and close the Junior Theater. Fast forward to April 1954, the theater must have closed down in those 4 years somewhere because Howard Larson secures a new lease on the building. He will reopen the theater when his other location, the Webb City Drive-In Theater, shuts down for the autumn. Before opening, however, he had some plans in mind. There were plans for laying new tile in the lobby, repainting the interior, and ornamental aluminum sheets to be installed on the front of the building. Just 2 months later, the theater would mysteriously catch fire in June of 1954. Larson states that plans for a remodel will still be happening that fall. In December of that same year, the theater must have opened up at some time, because this paper states that Howard Larson will be giving a free Christmas show to the children. Jump forward to the next time the theater is in the paper again, and that is March of 1957. The newspaper claimed that Webb City hadn't had a theater since the closing of the Civic that last fall in 1956, meaning the Larson was most likely not running. However, that same paper had an article talking about two guys, William Bradfield and Virgil Naramore. These two guys buy the real estate, the buildings, and the equipment of the Civic Theater, the Webb City Drive-In, and their Junior Theater, all purchased from Mr. and Mrs. Mayberry. The Mayberrys got the holdings in recent months, due to note foreclosure acts against the previous owners, the Civic Theater Company. The closing of those theaters in autumn of 1956 would mark the Larson family's last operation. Nothing in the paper mentions the Larson Theater being purchased around that time, so that's why I think that it probably sat empty for a few years, evident by these photos, but I'm not sure the exact year that they were taken. After 1957, information on the Larson goes dark and I can't find pretty much a single thing. That's why I think the building sat empty for so many years. Flash forward quite a bit now, this time to the late 90s. This is when the Munson family comes in and purchases the theater, putting hard work into restoring and remodeling the place. Primarily for music shows, as you can see here, leading to the name, the Route 66 Music Theater. Later, a man named Brady Moses comes along and he purchases the theater, putting in a projector. However, I can't find much at all on him, just this brief mention of him in an article. However, that same article is talking about how the theater just got bought yet again. It's 2005, and Scott and Nancy Hudson are about to bring back moviegoing in Webb City. They bought the theater, giving way more life to downtown Webb City. They plan to use the building to hold their Harley Owners Group's meetings there. To this day, Scott and Nancy still own the theater and run operations under a new name, the Route 66 Movie Theater. If you want a classic vintage movie theater experience, I seriously cannot think of another place to go. Scott and Nancy have done an absolute phenomenal job bringing this theater back to its classic look and vibe with this gorgeous Art Deco building. With its low prices, they make moviegoing fun and affordable. They even have some old movies and some events still to this day. There's also so many fun facts I found out about this place while researching, so I couldn't fit them all into this video, so here's just a few of my favorites. Clarence McDonald, manager at the time of it being called the Dickinson, had actually gotten in trouble for operating a gambling device. Clarence was running a dart game for cash prizes, calling it Dartaway. On December 13th, 1946, this more than odd ad ran in the paper saying that on Christmas Day the theater was going to be giving away a live baby off the stage. When Christmas came, it was revealed that it was actually just a baby pig named Junior. An actor once visited our theater in 1946. Webb City folks swarmed Abner Weaver from the Weaver Brothers and Elvira asking for autographs. In 1947, we also had a hypnotist come in to perform live in the theater. Honestly, I could go on and on with more stories I have about this place. It just has such an amazing, rich history. This video is one of the longer research topics. It was honestly really difficult to find out information on this place. I had to find documents, newspaper clippings, old photos, and more to just piece this whole story together, but I'm so happy I finally learned all the info, because a lot of this information I've never really seen be put into the light, and I've spent years and years wondering about the history of this place. And I'm honestly just so happy that I can share all this information with you guys so you too can know the history of this amazing theater. If you would like to know more about the Jasper County area's history, make sure you drop a like and follow. If there's any location around the Jasper County area that you would like to know more about the story or the history of, shoot me a message or drop me a comment and I will look more into it. Check out my YouTube channel, Jasper County Tall Tales, where I will be uploading more in-depth videos pretty soon. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. If you know what good food is, then you've probably been out here to Undercliff Bar and Grill. While today's episode is not on their amazing food, our story took place near there over 100 years ago. About a mile from where we are right now, one of the most deadliest train wrecks at the time occurred, taking the lives of several unfortunate victims. So come with me as we visit the location and talk about the story of the 1914 Tipton Ford train wreck. It was a hot summer day, and several of Neosho's African-American folks were celebrating some emancipation celebrations that were happening at, I think, Lakeside. And the reason I think that is I've seen so many articles talking about emancipation celebrations happening at Lakeside during the same few days as the wreck. They had actually been returning from their celebrations when tragedy struck. They were on a gas-electric motor car, also known as a doodlebug. However, an order was supposedly sent out for the doodlebug to pull over to the side so a KCS train could pass. Not much is known as to why the motor car didn't pull over to the side. Either way, that fateful day on August 5th, 1914, these two trains did not see each other and crashed head-on. The Kansas City Southern train plowed beneath the doodlebug, ripping its gas tank open where it exploded and was engulfed in flames, while the Kansas City Southern pushed it back several feet. Some passengers were reportedly blown out the windows, and they were apparently the lucky ones, while others were pinned down and slowly burnt to death or suffocated to death. Many being burned beyond recognition, and some reportedly were even asking to be shot while they burned to death. It was so hard to help anyone at all because the flames were so hot, and that would make it so much more dangerous to reach anybody. One Webb City doctor that was involved in the wreck went back for his family and some other victims. This wreck was one of the worst for its time. Burning embers glowed for hours after the wreck. Charred remains of the victims were ground into the wreckage as some of the motor car's parts turned to ashes. I mean, to this date, the exact death count is still debated. On Friday, August 7th, 2 days after the wreck, a mass funeral service took place here on the courthouse lawn in downtown Neosho. 33 caskets were escorted around the square, and the unidentified were buried in a mass grave in this here cemetery in Neosho. A large marker with the 15 at the time known victims was eventually placed in the cemetery. Others are also buried in the cemeteries around our area. So who's to blame for this horrible crash? Well, the answer isn't totally clear. Some blame was put on the crew of the motor car at the general offices of the Kansas City Southern Railway. Either way, this was a terrible tragedy that made headlines as far as the New York Times. This story would soon fall into the shadows, however, because around that same time, World War I would head start. A few years ago, a marker was put up outside Undercliff remembering the accident and those who lost their lives on that tragic day. Driving past these train tracks, you would never know what occurred on that hot August day looking at it now. There's a beautiful art piece on display in Neosho's United Methodist Church by Thomas Hart Benton's grandson, Anthony Benton Gude. I hope I'm saying that right. This painting is on the wreck and it's truly a gorgeous, beautiful piece. It's definitely important as a community to keep the story alive and remember who lost their lives that day. This history cannot be forgotten. So if you enjoy learning about local history and want to know more, I'd give this account a follow. I also have a YouTube channel that's in my bio you might want to check out if you're into this stuff. I will be uploading some more in-depth history videos on there as well. Also, I just want to say thank you guys so much for over 2,000 followers. As I'm recording this right now, I'm about to hit 3,000. I'm at like 2,600 something, so thank you guys so much. It is truly unbelievable that we've got that much followers in this short amount of time. I didn't even know there was that many people around here that were interested in the stories from here, so you guys keep watching them and I'll keep filming them. I would have made a video thanking you guys sooner, but I've just been so busy with so much stuff recently. I recently did a big Bonnie and Clyde location road trip that you can check out on YouTube. It's actually pretty cool. It's got a lot of interviews and stuff, so if you're into that kind of thing, definitely check that out. I'm going to try to start uploading these videos routinely every other week, because these videos take a lot of time and a lot of research, and I'm always trying to find the 100% correct information, so that's why it takes a little longer to get them out to you guys. I don't mean to make this outro so long, so if you guys like this kind of content, definitely give this page a follow. Drop a like, and also if there's any more Jasper County stories or history that you would like to know more about, shoot me a message or drop a comment and let me know. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. It's a really good story. In Webb City on a hot May day of Friday in 1958, most folks were doing their shopping or getting ready for the weekend or doing their deposits at the bank, and that's where our story starts. This building right here on Webb City's Main Street used to be the Merchants and Miners Bank, but you may know it as the Pinocchio School Dance Building. And on that Friday in 1958, some people were doing their deposits in there. But there was a strange man in the bank, and assistant cashier Cleo Allen was pretty suspicious. The well-dressed middle-aged man with his back turned to the tellers was kinda weird. Cleo Allen then went back here to the rear of the bank and phoned the police. That's when this officer right here answers, McLean. Officer McLean had been with the Webb City Police Force for about 6 weeks when he picked up the phone. He answered and there was no reply, and he began to hang up whenever he heard a very faint voice on the other line. Very quietly, he heard from the other line, "This is Cleo Allen at the bank. Come quick, we're being held up." Before Officer McLean could say anything, there was a click and the connection was broken. You see, Officer McLean thought this call was really odd and he didn't know what to do about it. He thought someone may have been even pranking him. He then jumped to his feet and ran to the door and yelled at Chief Earl Bunch, who was talking to Deputy Sheriff Eddie Vaughn. Vaughn grabbed his rifle and they were all out the door and into a squad car. Meanwhile, at the bank, the strange man, Howard Moat, who was an old employee at the Joplin Globe, walked up to a partition between Bank President Don Adamson's desk and the bank floor. He then waved what seemed to be a check. The Bank President Don Adamson then asked him what he wanted, so Howard then reached into his coat and pulled a gun out. Specifically a .38 caliber Colt Special. Adamson also attempted to grab the gun, and Moat jumped back and said, "Now don't do that anymore, this gun's loaded and I got the hammer back." So Adamson kinda had to say okay. Howard then made Adamson go over to assistant cashier Jack Carmack and tell him to sack up the money. The bandit told Carmack he wanted everything he had and he was not interested in the ones. He held the pistol on the men while Carmack stuffed the money into a sack. Just then, Cleo Allen, the guy who had actually phoned the police, started towards the front of the bank and saw that the man had a gun in his hand. He then allegedly turned around and stuffed 5 bank women employees into a vault, but also that story changes a little bit. I've seen different interviews. As Carmack finished sacking the bills, all 5 10s and 20s, it amounted to around $7,595. Moat took the money and stepped towards the door and then heard the Webb City police siren. The officers were drawing near the establishment. Chief Bunch directed them to split up and approach from each side and from the front. The Chief and Vaughn crossed the street so Vaughn could take the front position with his rifle and Chief could close in from the north. They then draw towards the doorway. Officer McLean peeked around the edge of the doorway to see the bank president Don Adamson at gunpoint. That's when the bandit turned around and spotted McLean. He grabbed President Don Adamson and used him as a shield and tossed the money on a table aside. Mr. Adamson slowly walked to the door, put his hand on the knob, and fumbled with the lock. This is when action strikes because then Don Adamson jerked to the side. The bandit then aimed his gun at McLean, so naturally McLean shot right through the glass door and hit him in the side. The bandit then staggered back and fired 2 shots. One struck the door jamb and the other smashed a large hole about 7 feet from the ground, shattering and raining glass on Officer McLean. The bandit was defeated. He handed Adamson his gun and said, "You've got me, boys. I've quit. Here's my gun." Adamson then went to the door and called the officers in, and Sheriff Deputy Vaughn ran ahead of McLean and into the building and dragged Moat upright and ordered him to put his hands on the wall. However, he didn't seem to be too injured, and there's more on that later. Moat was then loaded into the patrol car and taken over here to Janejin Hospital. He would stay there for a few days, and most days it actually looked like his condition was doing pretty well. He looked like he was going to make it, but then just a week later, on May 23rd, 1958, Howard Moat passed away at Janejin Hospital. Now, the day of the robbery, everybody wanted to see what happened. Chief Bunch tried to clear the sidewalks and couldn't. People wanted to follow them inside while they didn't even have him handcuffed yet. Now, remember whenever I said that Moat didn't seem injured? I mean, he wasn't even bleeding, apparently. Well, that's because they think he was on heroin at the time. You see, after the robbery, they had actually found a little container. It was called a sniffing container, and they had found it where Moat was standing. The container was coated inside with a fine white powder that gave off a heavy sweet scene, so, you know. The city then voted unanimously to promote Officer McLean to sergeant. This story actually got pretty popular and was even featured in an issue of True Police Cases magazine. The evidence from that day, however, has still not left. You see, I was lucky enough to get a tour from the building owner, Carol McGowan. You see, Carol has owned this building since the 1980s when her and her husband, Don McGowan, purchased the property, running it as the Pinocchio preschool and dance studio with apartments upstairs, where the offices used to be. That is literally the coolest thing, converting old offices into apartments. Like I said though, the evidence is still there, and this is a bullet hole from when the bandit had struck the door. This building has an amazing history behind it. I mean, that's not even the only robbery that has occurred there.
We leased the building in '82, and we started the preschool that fall, and we had tons of work to do. One of the things we had to do is change the doors to go out instead of in, because of, you know, the children, safety law. Well, anyway, so my husband and I were working and getting things done, and Cleo Allen from the bank, he was president of the bank at the time, but he was a teller when it happened. And he goes, "Stop and take a break and let me tell you about the bank robbery." So he came in, he showed us this bullet hole, and he explained what happened, but the doors opened in then.
I want to thank Carol for letting me film and help and interview and, you know, just overall letting me look at this building that I wanted to see for years and years. It was just so cool getting to see everything and amazing to see a lot of the original bank items and structures, so Carol, you are the best. If there's any other stories around the Jasper County area that you want to know more about, shoot me a message or drop a comment and let me know. If you enjoy learning about our area's history and want to know more, make sure to follow this page. I also just started an Instagram called Jasper County Tall Tales. I mean, I figured I upload everywhere else like YouTube and Facebook, so why not start putting them on Instagram? Also, you may have noticed that I'm wearing this awesome Jasper County Tall Tales shirt. I'm going to be making these in a lot more designs, so if anybody would be interested in these, let me know, and I'll make a few more. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Okay, so for my video in November that I'm going to be doing a big video on the Connor Hotel that was here in Joplin, where the library sits now on Main Street. But I wanted to show you guys something that came in the mail today. I'm trying to figure out how to open it right now. Okay, I need to put down the camera so I can open them. Okay, are you all ready for the dramatic flip? Oh my... This right here is original Connor Hotel stationery. I'm trying to figure out the year right now. After some research, I figured out that they are most likely from the 1920s, like 1919 to 1920, something like that. Arnie Alice serving as the president, and there is a photo of him right there. Okay, after 5 minutes of tearing apart the plastic, trying to be careful, I finally got them out. Can you believe that that was one time in Joplin? Like, isn't that insane to think about? I got like 19 sheets of this. I am so happy to have these. I now have an urge to write someone a letter on this. The world has some pretty crazy mysteries. Like, where's Cleopatra's tomb? What's the meaning of the Voynich manuscript? And what's the meaning behind this Stonehenge mystery? However, there's one mystery that's been puzzling the area's residents for generations. I'm Aiden Chambers, I'm a local historian, and I figure you probably already know what I'm talking about. We're going to be talking about the spook light.
It's a four-state legend that's been discussed since the 1800s. I'm talking about what's known as the Joplin spook light.
Tri-State Spook Light, Hornet Spook Light, Joplin Spook Light, it honestly has a lot of names. On a quiet, dark road along the Missouri-Oklahoma border near Quapaw, Oklahoma, there's been a light that shows up at night and continues to spook those who are brave enough to go out there. And it's known to bob up and down and around, you know, change colors, and supposedly has even came up to vehicles before. The spook light's first written sighting was in the Joplin Globe in an article titled "Mysterious Light Puzzles Observers" on June 10, 1934. The article described the light as a strange light on a lonely farm-to-market road some 5 miles southwest of Hornet and approximately 16 miles southwest of Joplin. It resembles a one-eyed motor car with a bright headlight at times, and other times the light appears in a dim red color, not lasting long until it disappears. The light started to attract locals and tourists, and a spook light museum was even added by this guy right here, Arthur P. Meadows. Arthur P. Meadows, otherwise known as Spooky Meadows, opened up his museum around 1949 or 1950 as a tourist destination. Spooky offered postcards and other memorabilia about the spook light. He sold snacks out of his museum, burgers, and other things. Most of the museum space was filled with a few pinball machines, a jukebox, and a pool table. Spooky also set up a telescope for viewers to watch the light for only a quarter. Like I said though, this light is gaining quite a bit of attention. I mean, teenagers, moms, dads, they're bringing their kids out to see this light, or at least hopefully get a glimpse of it. With that attention, however, however, also brought the attention of some scientists, but we'll get onto that later. Now, this light is really strange and has several legends behind it, and the road to view it has even changed a few times. The final change in roads was around 1950, and this time it was to present E50 road. E50 is apparently where a lot of people still go to view the light. I go to E40, that's where I can see it the best, but apparently a lot of people go to the different spots. I actually have seen it a few different times. I saw it with my friend Ava at one point. It went down the road, and it was just terrifying. I really have no idea how to explain it. There's so many legends and stories as to what this light really could be. One legend says that a young maiden's father, who was a Quapaw tribe chief, thwarted a marriage of his daughter and a man by demanding an unusually high payment for his daughter's hand. So the two lovers ran away together, and the chief sent his warriors after them. Fearing severe punishment if they were caught, the couple threw themselves off a large rock overlooking Spring River, near the Devil's Promenade Bridge, often called Lover's Leap. Some people say that the light shines as a symbol for their eternal love. Another legend claims that in the 1800s, when the light first appeared, so many local people got freaked out by the light that they packed up and moved, and one couple that left even blamed the light for the death of their 2 children. There's also several variations of a story about someone out there carrying a lamp or a lantern. One example is a legend that tells of a miner coming home to find out all of his children had been kidnapped by Indians, so he went out searching with a lantern, and they say that the light is the glow of his lantern. Obviously, most of these are legends because there's little to no proof of these stories actually happening. But hey, honestly, you really do never know, and they are just still super fun to read. Another theory as to what it could be was swamp gases or some sort of gas, but the most logical, obvious theory is that it is just headlights. You see, that's what several scientists and experimental groups went out here to do. They tested the light and tested the headlight theory and several other theories to see what this light actually was. In 1946 and 1955, groups from Camp Crowder and even a high school ran experiments on the light, both drawing the same conclusion that it was just headlights coming from Route 66 in the distance, and that would make sense, but there's also some flaws to that as well. You see, sightings of the spook light have been around since before cars were even around. This man here is Bill Miser, a lifelong resident of the spook light area. Miser said he and some friends saw what he believed was the first ghost light in the area in the early 1900s when he was about 17 years old, and it frightened them. However, he is not the only one that says he remembers the light. Arthur Holbrook from Joplin said he'd first seen the light in 1905, and others claim that their grandparents or their parents had seen the light in the 1800s. Also, seeing the spook light now is a lot more rare as it used to be, and that's also another really weird thing because it's not like car traffic would be going down anymore. See, there's just so many holes in the stories and flaws with the spook light that it's just so hard to tell what it even is. Apparently, the light's also gone into people's cars, gone under people's cars, burnt up their upholstery, sat behind mailboxes. I mean, this is just crazy. Unfortunately, though, as the years passed, the spook light lost its popularity. Spooky closed the museum for good on August 31st, 1983, and unfortunately passed in January of 1984. Spooky, however, proved to be the spook light's biggest fan, and his museum and dedication to telling stories about the light really were worth the trip out there, and he really just kept it alive. The spook light has been featured in books, magazines, articles. I grew up hearing about the spook light from my mom and dad, who had gone out there when they were teenagers, and I've even seen it probably 2 or 3 times. It's really crazy to see this thing. I've always wanted to get exact stories and info on the spook light, and yes, the internet does have a lot of that, but they also have a lot of just like random information that I don't even know is true. Like, a lot of it does not have sources whatsoever. So when I saw this book right here by Larry Wood, I immediately had to purchase it. Larry Wood actually does a fantastic job putting this book together and all the stories and all the facts and pictures. I mean, it's an amazing book, and he's got quite a big selection of Jasper County books, as you can see here. I got this book over at Bob's Always Buying Books. He's got an amazing selection of Jasper County books, history books, just anything you're looking for to read. I'd definitely check out his place. If you guys enjoyed this video and you want to know more about Jasper County's history, make sure you give this account a follow. If there's any stories you'd like to know more about, drop me a comment or shoot me a message and let me know. Also, thank you guys so much for 3,000 followers, over 3,000 followers at this point. We just had 2,000. How are we at 3,000 now? I mean, this is insane. You guys are genuinely the best. Keep watching them, and I'll keep filming them. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Also, I completely forgot to mention in the video that we went to the spook light a few nights ago. We did not end up seeing it. What ended up happening, actually, is I locked my keys in my car, and we were stuck out of my car for a good hour. So that was actually a blast.
Oh. Ah! You did it!
What does gambling, bar fights, saloons, brothels, and prominent businessmen all have in common? Well, it all took place right here. The area may look different now, Spiva Park with all the beautifully carved statues, but it used to be home to the Worth Block back in the day. Which, while it did house the Keystone Bar, Dunhu Drugs, and some more businesses, there was one Joplin prominent business that stuck out. A place where Joplin's most prominent businessmen would write their plans on tablecloths and then brush shoulders with criminals on the way out. I'm Aiden Chambers, I'm a local historian, and I am of course talking about Joplin's famous House of Lords. The owner Billy Patton had searched for a name for the place ever since it had opened up some 2 years earlier around 1890, at 319 Main Street in Joplin. The story goes that name was entered in by an Englishman who was staying at the nearby Keystone Hotel. He in fact loved the name so much that he had the words House of Lords inscribed in the saloon entryway. Now you're probably wondering, well, what is the House of Lords? The House of Lords was a famous saloon, cafe, and, well, a few other things. The bottom floor was a bar and restaurant, where one could enjoy an amazing steak and the choicest of drinks. Once they finished that, they could move upstairs where high-stake games of chance took place. The Gambling House. It is reported that as much as 50,000 could change hands during a weekend poker game here. After that, they're going to want to move up to the third and final floor, which housed the very organized brothel, also known as the Order of the Scarlet Garter. The House of Lords was famous for a few reasons: the free-flowing liquor, the high-stakes games, the women, the gambling, and so much more. But they're also known for the music that was played there. Scott Joplin, also known as the father of ragtime, had performed there, and so has Percy Weinrich. The House of Lords changed owners many times over the years, but there is one man that was most well known. Gilbert Barbie, part owner of the Joplin Globe and powerful Democratic boss, owned the House of Lords building. Barbie had an apartment in the North Globe building and had a walkway built between the second floor of the House of Lords and his apartment. Barbie's House of Lords had a lot of negativity, not just from papers, but from a lot of people, however. Several raids took place at the House of Lords over the years. One raid was even conducted by the mayor of Joplin, Mayor Humes. He found 10 to 12 men drinking on a Sunday. Humes and 2 policemen arrested proprietor Burke McMullough and 3 other employees. The House of Lords also had its fair share of fights, assaults, and even some deaths. 3 men ended up dying from altercations happening at the House of Lords. The first death was Frank Fay in October of 1901 over a gambling dispute. The next death was Will Moore, who was shot outside of the House of Lords in June of 1901 and died 8 years later from his injuries. The third and final death was September of 1913, where Arthur Curtis died, and he was shot about 4 times for apparently no reason. While all the wild stories took place in the bar and gambling house, and even some on the outside of the House of Lords, the brothel on the 3rd floor definitely has a famous story. 2 weeks ago last Saturday night, I, in a company with 3 other Democrats, stood in front of the Joplin Hotel, and such a sight was seen on the opposite side of the street that cannot be forgotten. A drunken, brazen, disgusting stood in front of a window in the 3rd story of the House of Lords as naked as when she came into the world, in plain view of the hundreds of people walking up and down the street, and not an officer with the courage or decency to prevent it. Ladies were obliged to turn their faces or leave the street, and I am told the proprietor of the hotel cannot assign a lady a front room because of the character of the occupants in the building across the street. Not every story that comes from the House of Lords is negative, however. The one of Thomas Hart Benton is very inspirational. Thomas Hart Benton went into the House of Lords one night and ordered a beer and noticed a painting from across the bar. It depicted a naked girl with a mask on her face, and she was lying across a sort of bed, appeared to be dying from a knife wound. In the background was a young man in a fancy costume. He was about to stab himself. I believe that the story, which hung in gold letters beside the picture, told that the girl was his sister, with whom after a night at a masked ball, he had engaged in amorous play, ignorant of the relationship that existed between them. In any case, it was someone he should not have been playing with in the nude. So he had stuck his knife into her and was ready to go to work on himself. Thomas was so absorbed into the painting that the people from down the bar started to notice. They started to laugh and kid while Thomas was hot with embarrassment. To defend himself, he told the people that he wasn't really interested in the nude, but more of how it was painted because he was an artist and he was viewing it from an artist standpoint. One of the tormentors then asked Benton, "So you're an artist, shorty?" To which Benton replied, "Yes, by God I am, and I'm a good one." One of the men asked if he was working, and he said he was out of a job but looking for one. The man suggested he should try for the new paper and even offered to take him there. Thomas was then led down the block to the Joplin American. Thomas entered and asked, "Do you need an artist on this paper?" A man looked up and chuckled, "Yes, we need an artist, but we need a good one." Thomas was then tasked with going to the drugstore across the street and making a sketch of the man behind the counter. When he got back to the office, there were several men waiting, and they passed his sketch around. One man asked if he could do it in ink, which Thomas replied yes, he had done a lot of his photos in ink. So Thomas got the job for $14 a week. The House of Lords of course can't be talked about without mentioning the 7 famous paintings that hung in the bar. There are several theories as to the artist behind the paintings because they have no signature on them. Frona Norman, who we will talk about more later on, believes that the artist behind the 7 paintings had painted them to pay for his whiskey, as he was an alcoholic. I, along with many other history buffs, have wanted to find out way more about these paintings, like where they went to, what they look like, and most importantly, where they are now. Well, whenever I came into contact with Miss Courtney Coleman, the owner of the last known House of Lords painting, I was beyond shocked. I was so excited and I had to know more information. Courtney was so nice. She let me into her home. She let me look at her collection and shared so many stories with me. And I even got to do a great interview with her. But that painting was my holy grail and the thing I have searched for years. I wanted to know the whole story behind it, and Courtney did not disappoint. So without further ado, here's my interview with Miss Courtney Coleman, the owner of the last House of Lords painting. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Courtney. So I've always, growing up Joplin, I've known about the House of Lords, and I've had this painting for about 20 years. Actually, a little over 20 years. A friend of the family, she owned this painting. Mary Helen Barbie, which she goes by Helen Barbie. Her and her friend, we were helping pack up their house and everything, and she pretty much, she knew I always, I really admired this painting. She told her, family that, hey, I want her to have this. She gave it to me and, passed it down to me, and I ended up with it. I was just kind of shocked. I was like, I wasn't expecting to ever get something like this. I was just humbled feeling, knowing that I think she kind of wanted somebody that was going to take care of it and appreciate it, not somebody that was just going to, sell it off or anything. So there were 7 paintings that hung in the bar area, right behind the bar. It would change hands. The new owner would come in, they would get a new painting, like whatever painting they liked, they would take it. And so when it finally closed, Frona Norman, she bought 3 paintings. And so she sold one to a local doctor. The other one burned, and that was Brothers Remorse, the famous painting Thomas Hart Benton that he saw and he got a start from. But the other one is right here. So this is pretty much the last known painting that can trace back. It's not made on canvas. It's more like a board. All 7 paintings were not signed. The theory is it was a guy, artist paying for all his liquor by painting. There's stories on it. Could have been a famous painter and he came in. But this exact painting, they painted it from another picture. It's the Lorelei on the rocks. Her great-grandfather was Gilbert Barbie, which he owned the Joplin Globe, and then later on he did own the building of the House of Lords. So he, was like Democrat. He, did a lot of stuff for Joplin, a lot of charities and everything.
Liquor troubles, however, would prove to be the death of the House of Lords. The Volstead Act in 1919, which prevented the sale, transportation, or consumption of liquor, is really how the House of Lords died. In 1920, the Volstead Act took effect and actually had quite a big effect on Joplin, especially the House of Lords, which would end up closing its doors in 1920 and even tried to run as a cafe for a little bit, but then it ended in January of 1922. When Prohibition was repealed, however, the House of Lords apparently came back, but in a different location. But the stories and the legends and everything about the original House of Lords would not live up to this place. There was also a cafe apparently opened up in 1958 named after the House of Lords, but like I said, nothing is going to be that original feeling. The Worth Block, which housed the House of Lords, was torn down in 1964. To this day, however, the House of Lords still holds so many mysteries and legends. It is remembered as one of Joplin's most important and famous places, leaving a permanent mark on our city all these years later. The reason this video took a while is because it is just so hard to separate fact from fiction with all of these House of Lords stories and facts, going through old newspaper documents, and also just so much research from Courtney. So Courtney, again, thank you so much. The House of Lords is one of the reasons I started this channel. I mean, it is just such an amazing story. It's just a crazy history. I want to give a huge shout out and thanks to Courtney Coleman, who let me go into her house and interview her and just take so many photos and videos. I mean, it was just awesome. I also want to give a huge thank you to the Joplin Museum, whose booth I am in right now, the House of Lords booth. They let me come in here and film and sit around and, do everything. So thank you guys so much for letting me bother you. If you enjoy this content and would like to know more about the Jasper County area's history, make sure you give this account a follow and shoot me a message or drop a comment. If you know of any stories that your family might have from the House of Lords or any Joplin location, definitely let me know. I'd love to hear them. I've got a pretty big video next month coming up on the Connor Hotel, so you guys might want to stay tuned for that. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. This is also the doorknob from the House of Lords brothel, so, I mean, imagine how many have touched that. Before I start this video, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Dr. Chad Stebbins, who let me interview him and ask him so many questions about his amazing book, Joplin's Connor Hotel, which I 1000% recommend. It's got the whole history of the hotel, everything about it, and so many awesome stories. He also has this one on the guy himself, Tom Connor, Joplin's millionaire. This is also an amazing book. Definitely check these out, guys. Now, onto the video. Downtown Joplin has some beautiful buildings, such as the Griffin Building, the Union Depot, the Newman Building, and a few others. However, there's one building that was probably the most beautiful to ever stand and be built in Joplin. The area obviously looks extremely different now, but what used to be here is still in the hearts of many Joplin folks. I'm Aiden Chambers, I'm a local historian, and come with me as we explore Joplin's famous Connor Hotel. Our story begins with Joplin millionaire Tom Connor in the 1890s. You see, Connor was part owner of the Joplin Hotel in 1891, the building that sits where the Connor would later sit. E.Z. Wallower, owner of the Keystone Hotel, had accepted an offer from Tom to split earnings from the Joplin Hotel and Keystone and share a single manager. Well, early in the new century, Wallower actually came to Connor and told him that he was not going to be renewing that agreement to split proceeds and share a manager. That's when Connor said that it didn't really matter because he was going to be building a $250,000 hotel. Obviously, Wallower was a little bit skeptical, but after a few legal deals, the hotel would come down by a small group of 95 workers in just 6 days. It was time for Thomas Connor's hotel to be put up. Some workers even passed away while working on the Connor, which was bound to happen. I mean, the safety concerns of construction workers back then was a little more different than it is now. Tom Connor passed away and unfortunately never got to see the opening of his own hotel, passing away in March of 1907.
So he was going to either call it the New Joplin Hotel or the Catherine Hotel in honor of his mother. And unfortunately, he died a year before the hotel was completed, and so his heirs decided to name it the Connor.
The grand opening for the hotel was quite the event, however. Guests coming in through Main Street would pass under a large Roman canopy made of bronze and glass before entering the beautiful lobby, aka Joplin's living room, with the gorgeous marble staircase reportedly costing $250,000. On opening, some 350 guests were served while an orchestra played and another 200 would be turned away. Employees had estimated that 3,000 to 4,000 went on self-guided tours inspecting every nook and cranny of the 8-story hotel. Events held at the Connor included weddings, rehearsal dinners, receptions, banquets, dances, balls, recitals, club meetings, dinner parties, luncheons, and the St. Avid's Ball in the 1960s. The hotel had 210 rooms until the annex was later added on, adding 160 rooms.
1929, an owner named Barney Alice added an annex onto the Connor, which essentially doubled it in size and made Joplin a big convention city.
They also had an amazing roof garden viewing all of Joplin. Catering manager Charles Renner said, "It is too fine a hotel for Joplin. It should be in Chicago." And I kind of agree with that statement. I mean, look at this beautiful building. Look at the architecture and the carvings and just everything about it is just gorgeous. During the Connor's years, it brought a lot of famous attention. Several actors, politicians, and even some daredevils stayed at the Connor. Harry Truman stayed here a few times, as well as Reagan when he was a movie star having a party in his honor, Eleanor Roosevelt, Peter Lawford, and just so many more. And like Dr. Stebbins mentioned, the human flies.
The most interesting part to me may have been the human flies and human spiders that climbed the Connor between roughly 1915 and 1920. Literally, there would be thousands of people gathered at 4th and Main.
A few deaths occurred over at the Connor during its years, some people jumping out windows and some other unfortunate situations, but the most common death were elevator-involved deaths. Also, apparently a goat got tossed out of like the 4th or 5th window by some conventioneers once, so rest in peace to that goat. While the Connor was up during its 70-year run, several people would take ownership over the building's lease, including this man right here, Barney Alice. Barney owned the hotel for about 23 years, and he's the guy that put on the annex and made a few other changes to the building. When Barney decided to sell the annex and the lease on the original hotel in 1946 to Allsonnet Hotels, he kinda signed the death contract for the Connor. And that's because Allsonnet Hotels did not take care of this place whatsoever. They invested in next to nothing in restorations or improvements to this building. Allsonnet Hotels had owned the Connor for years, looking to sell in the 60s, but the insistence of Allsonnet that the hotel was worth $1.22 million dissuaded several buyers. They obviously could not afford to renovate the building or improve it in any way. There were just so many electrical and other building problems that absolutely needed to be taken care of. And the opening of the motels on Range Line and around that area kind of didn't help the Connor situation.
It really was, I think, the advent of Range Line Road and I-44 that took all that traffic off Main and put it on Range Line.
The hotel even closed in 1969 at one point. In 1971, Burl Garvin and Roy Steele had bought the hotel, and about a week later renamed it to Connor Tower Apartments and Motor Hotel. Later on, the Downtown Redevelopment Corporation began negotiating with Garner to buy the hotel in September of 1976, which he accepted and sold. That's when the Redevelopment Corporation started to raise money for tearing it down. Meanwhile, a Save the Connor petition was started. Many people supported this, including the Jasper County Historical Society, Webb City Historical Society, Joplin Historical Society, and just so many other people. Although so many people and groups tried to save this hotel, in June of 1978, after 8 hours of negotiations by 7 attorneys and 16 others, the final warranty deed was transferred from the Connor Towers Development Corporation to the Library Landholders Incorporation, who would be building a library in the Connor's Place. Preparations for demolition of the Connor were made for Sunday, November 12, 1978. Workers were to tape about 300 explosive charges to the steel framework in the older portion of the hotel and place 200 pounds of dynamite in the holes in the steel reinforced concrete pillars of the annex section. Most charges would be placed in the basement and the rest being on the first floor. A series of blasts would bring the Connor down in about 14 to 15 seconds. On Saturday morning, about 24 hours before the Connor was supposed to be demolished, 2 workers were using torches to cut notches into the steel beams in the basement, while another worker was 1 floor up doing the same thing, so that later in the day explosive charges would be placed in those holes. Around 9:15 a.m., the building swayed towards Main Street and unexpectedly collapsed the day before the scheduled demolition. The collapse sent dust flying in all directions, trapping 3 workers in the rubble. The workers would be identified the next day on Sunday. Alfred Summers was 31 and from Joplin and an Air Force veteran of Vietnam. He was in the basement with Frederick Coe III, a 29-year-old 1970 graduate from Washburn University. Upstairs was Thomas Oakes, a 45-year-old Navy veteran of the Korean War. It took the rest of that Saturday to find out exactly how many members of the demolition crew were in the Connor when it collapsed.
The nation's attention was focused on the Connor in November 1978 as they looked for the 3 men who had been trapped in the rubble. And all 3 major TV networks sent news crews to Joplin. And it was Joplin was the focus of the nation's attention.
The Red Cross Joplin chapter of the Veterans of Foreign Wars, volunteers, rescue teams, police, fire department, even the Missouri National Guard were all here trying to help find these men, while so many others watched with hope behind the barricades. When rescue workers would find an air pocket, they would shout, "Hey!" down into it and get nothing in response. Raymond Garner, head of the law enforcement canine search and rescue, called JPD and offered his help. Garner and his 6-year-old partner Sir Joel flew to Joplin and began searching on Monday night. As Monday turned into Tuesday, many volunteers doubted that anybody could still be alive. Garner and Sir Joel continued to search until Tuesday morning. That's when Sir Joel seemed pretty interested in one spot, sniffing and pawing at it. The crew then narrowed down their search to that spot. Then Harold Snyder, General Superintendent of Snyder Bros Construction, had shouted "hey" into one hole. He was probably pretty freaked out when he heard another "hey" back. Alfred Summers was found in the northeast section of the basement after being buried alive for 77 hours.
Last it has happened. They are pulling Alfred Summers out of the basement of the Connor Hotel.
He was under 2 slabs of concrete that had fallen together and created a cavity 24 inches high and 30 feet long. He tried crawling out on his stomach, banging on pipes and calling out for help, but hadn't realized the entire building had collapsed on him. He thought only the first floor had fallen. Summers was finally freed at 7:34 p.m. on Tuesday. He was taken to St. John's Medical Center, where he was listed in satisfactory condition with 3 broken ribs and a fractured pelvis.
I had broken pelvis, broken ribs on each side, a lot of dust, you know what I mean? A lot of dust in my lungs, you know, I was in pretty bad shape.
Unfortunately, the other 2 men would be found deceased 2 days later on Thursday. Coe at 7:05 a.m., about 55 to 60 feet from Summers' location. Oakes was found at 1:53 p.m. Both men died instantly of head and chest injuries. On Sunday morning, November 19th, 1 week after the Connor was supposed to be blown up, the 9-story annex was demolished in 6 seconds. You see, after this, OSHA began an on-site investigation as to why the Connor went down and who was to blame exactly. OSHA spokesman Warren Hargreaves, and I'm sorry if I'm saying that name wrong, said 6 days after the disaster, "We know what happened. They apparently cut enough columns that the building wouldn't support itself anymore. The question is, was something done to ensure that too many columns weren't cut? The building was self-supporting for 70 years, and then it wasn't anymore on Saturday morning. The only thing that would cause that is if too many columns were cut. Some people were fine, like the prime contractor and the subcontractor in charge of explosions, so pretty much the building just couldn't support itself anymore after they cut those columns. While the Connor is gone, its legacy will always still live on in Joplin."
I still get chills almost going to 4th and Main and looking at where the Connor once stood.
Several pieces of the Connor are also still out there in different collections and such. The pillars that were actually at the entrance of the Connor are now sitting in the library that sits where the Connor sat. I have a few pieces of and from the Connor, like I have a few tiles, I have some stationery, and then a spoon. You see, whenever they dumped the rubble for the Connor, they dumped it over at Zora and St. Louis in Joplin. And I, along with several other people, have gone over there and found what's washed out of that creek. We found a lot of decorative stone out there, a lot of decorative tiles, and just so much stuff. It's honestly very sad to see how the Connor was treated in its last few years. I 100% think that it could have been taken care of and used for something else. If your aunt, uncle, grandma, grandpa, you know, any of them lived here, then they more than likely remember the day the Connor collapsed and where they were. If you enjoyed this video and would like to know more about the Jasper County area's history, make sure you give this account a follow, comment, or shoot me a message about which story you would like to know more about next. I also want to give a big, giant thank you to Brenda Dalton, who gave me these Connor Hotel papers over the span of the few days whenever it collapsed. These are honestly so cool to have. I've been looking at all the photos in them, and just to read these newspaper accounts of everything that was happening, it is so fascinating. So Miss Dalton, thank you so much. I seriously appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Would you believe me if I told you that one of Joplin's most famous restaurants that is still operating to this day had some alleged ties to the Mafia? And would you believe me if I told you that that place was allegedly bombed by the Mafia? With their giant glowing sign that was in the background of the movie The Shape of Water for some odd reason, Wilder's has been serving their delicious meals for decades and decades, so there's bound to be some history with that. I'm Aiden Chambers, I'm a local historian, and I'm going to tell you about the time that Wilder's was bombed by the alleged Mafia. This guy right here is Vern Wilder, owner of Wilder's Steakhouse. You see, Wilder has been in trouble with the law before. With moonshine to illegal gambling, he definitely had a few run-ins with the law. So it's not too much of a shocker, and it's pretty commonly known that Wilder had gambling going on above his restaurant. He even testified in court in December of 1950 that an associate, Harry Hunt, was running gambling upstairs. So this gambling was obviously going to stir up problems, and did one Thursday night on September 3rd, 1959. While people are downstairs enjoying their meals, some folks were upstairs in Wilder's office. Vern Wilder himself was downstairs as well, and nobody really knew what was about to happen next. A sudden explosion rocked the building and shook other buildings, shattering windows, tearing a 4-foot wide hole in the roof, and littering debris and dust over much of the upper story, damaging some cars and injuring 6 people. Of the 6 injured, they were all in Wilder's office except one lady who was in her apartment in an adjoining building. The blast being from 5 to 10 sticks of dynamite detonated on the roof directly above Wilder's office, leading to the belief that it was an attempt on taking the life of Wilder or an associate. But the thing that doesn't add up is whenever Wilder was asked about who did this, he said that he had no idea and then he would not answer any questions about it, like fully declining any further comment. Of the 6 injured, however, Charles Greenwood would be the most injured. He would be taken into surgery and unfortunately would die 2 days later on Saturday, September 5th, making this investigation a lot more serious. However, this investigation hit a pretty big dead end whenever they realized that they didn't have enough evidence to put anybody away. The Carthage Evening Press even stated that the chief of police called it a case of attempted murder, but Wilder wouldn't talk about it, and investigators indicated they were unable to determine the motive for the bombing. And in another paper, it stated that Joplin police and sheriffs failed to turn up any sufficient proof to arrest anybody. Even in 1960, a guy came to Joplin to privately investigate the bombing. He said he had about 8 or 10 suspects and had proof linking them to the crime. But later a paper in October of 1960 most likely references what happened, saying that a dramatic play on the Wilder's blast by a newcomer to Joplin last month brought in nothing we didn't already know. So remember what I said about Wilder's and his illegal gambling upstairs? Well, it is the overall belief that Wilder's was bombed due to that gambling. A paper from January of 1960 mentions that following the dynamiting, there were rumors of racketeers from other parts of the Midwest that were trying to move in on gambling operations in Joplin. Now, if you don't know what racketeers are or racketeering is, it's pretty much just organized crime, or like the Mafia. Yes, believe it or not, it is widely known and believed that Joplin did in fact have some Mafia ties. So it's not too shocking that Vern, who, like I said, had set up gambling operations and got in trouble for it, had some ties to the Mafia, and probably pissed him off a little bit.
Are you in the Mafia?
Am I in a what?
According to the Wilder's website, the Mafia tried to kill Vern, saying that organized crime in Kansas City wanted to shut down Wilder's because it was siphoning business from Kansas. Even in court, John Vitally, who is a boss and underboss in the St. Louis crime family, and 3 others were summoned to appear in Jasper County grand jury in an investigation of the bombing. But like I said, the papers reported in 1960 that the police did have some suspects, but not enough evidence to put anybody away. But people still to this day remember where they are when it happened and debate on whether or not who did it. I personally believe that it was some sort sort of group of organized crime or the mafia. I mean, the evidence is all pretty much right there, and he wouldn't say anything, so that's just what I believe. Also, I mean, just looking at his past. Now, I'm not trying to say anything bad about Vern Wilder, because truly that man was an amazing person, and the people that I have met that had knew Vern or knew Vern's family had literally nothing bad to say about him. So, totally good guy, just maybe got into a little bit of trouble, allegedly. I even got lucky enough to see some of Vern's personal items. My friend Scott Sarley, who I've done a video with in the past, and who also runs a local history channel with a lot more stories that I 100% recommend, I'll tag him below. But his family actually had some ties to Vern Wilder and has some of his stuff.
So my great-grandpa was a chef there. They were really good friends. He would give my grandpa his car, would give him big bonuses. So this is one of the other things he gave my grandpa. He was an avid fisherman, very avid outdoorsman. So we got a lot of his fishing stuff. Have some of his antlers from some deer he killed, different things like that.
I've been wanting to talk about this bombing since my boss and a few others mentioned it to me. I mean, I thought it was a crazy story, and I thought it was even crazier that I had never heard of it. You could still see on Facebook a lot of people's comments saying where they were when it happened or where their grandma was. So a lot of people still definitely remember it. There's a lot more mafia stories based in and around Joplin, some of them legends and a lot of them true. So if you'd like to hear more about those, definitely let me know in the comments. But if you want to hear any more Jasper County area history stories, you know the drill. Make sure you give this account a follow. Drop a comment or shoot me a message about any other Jasper County story you would like to hear. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.
Clean days at the Webb City Pool were Tuesdays and Saturdays. So on Fridays and Mondays, they would completely empty the pool, scrub it down, and completely fill it again. So it was wonderful, clear water. And so my mom loved swimming too, so we would go to the pool always on Tuesday and Saturday, and sometimes in between. But I remember going there as a child and starting out in the baby pool. It had bars around it, and I'll never forget when I graduated to be able, Mom thought I could go underneath the bar, and I did. And then got to go to the deep end, and first time it was jump off the low diving board. Okay, you got that. Now you can go to the high diving board. And so it was just a graduated system of learning to swim, and everybody was at the Webb City Pool. Webb City was the place to go. And then as I got older and started sunbathing, we would go out in the field, kind of north of the pool, and all the guys with cars would drive around, you know, to see who was sunbathing. So pretty much spent my childhood and summers at the Webb City Pool, for sure. But then I have to tell you another funny story. So the chat piles were everywhere and off limits for me. Yeah. My parents just absolutely said no because they were dangerous. They could they could cave in.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
But there were some beautiful swimming holes. The water was crystal clear blue. It was beautiful.
Orinoco's still got one out there too.
Yes, yeah. And a lot of the guys rode their motorcycles over the chats. You know, a great place to ride motorcycles. Yeah. In fact, I think our folks invented a story that there was a hatchet man in the chat. So.
To keep you out?
Yeah. So don't go to the chats because the hatchet man might...
Like we've talked about here on the show before, Joplin used to be a hotspot for criminal activity back in the day, with some stories of even famous criminals passing through. However, one infamous couple's visit to Joplin would leave a permanent mark on the city's history. In April of 1933, Bonnie and Clyde and their gang weren't just passing through Joplin, they were laying low in this here apartment garage behind me until the police had gotten notice. I'm Aiden Chambers, I'm a local historian, and this is the true story about when Bonnie and Clyde came to Joplin. They could all use a vacation, so Clyde had convinced his older brother Buck to take a trip to Joplin. Blanche, however, was not too comfortable with this because Buck had recently been released from prison and gotten a pardon, so she was not taking any chances. However, Buck had already told Clyde yes, so it was off to Joplin they went. Clyde, Bonnie, and WD all rode in Clyde's typical stolen Ford V8, while Buck, Blanche, and Blanche's dog had all made the trip in Buck's non-stolen, legally purchased 1929 Marmon sedan. On April 1st of 1933, Bonnie and Clyde, along with Clyde's older brother Buck and his wife Blanche and W.G. Jones, all moved into this garage apartment on Oak Ridge Drive in Joplin. Bonnie and Blanche had rented the place a day before for a hefty price of $50. The gang's days in the apartment were spent relaxing, taking apart their weapons, playing cards, just keeping themselves entertained. On April 7th, new legislation allowed beer sales for the first time since Prohibition. So how did the Barrow Gang celebrate? By buying and drinking a case every single night. They enjoyed seeing who could drink the most, so pretty much they were having an alcohol poisoning contest. All except for Blanche, however, because Blanche was not a big drinker. You see, Blanche actually didn't want to come to Joplin, and she was just coming because of Buck. Buck thought that he could convince Clyde to turn himself into the police. And Blanche, not wanting to lose her husband, she followed, and that pretty much sealed her fate. They also went to movies some nights. Blanche and Bonnie shopped at a nearby Crest store, buying small picture frames, rings, ashtrays, and quote, anything else we saw that was pretty or that we wanted or needed. Clyde would never allow delivery men to come inside, so Blanche would always meet them down there. One night, Clyde wanted to go to a small town near Joplin to look for something and wanted his brother Buck to join him. Blanche obviously did not want Buck going because she feared that he was going to be dragged into some sort of trouble with Clyde. But they told Blanche not to worry because they weren't going to be robbing anything that night, and if they were, Clyde would not include Buck in it. So they left and did not return for hours. When they returned, it was to no surprise that they had actually robbed somewhere, but it was not a bank. They robbed an armory, a National Guard armory. But more on that later. However, the guns weren't the only thing that they stole while they were here because they were later connected to some robberies in the area. WD also stole a Ford V8 Roadster from Miami, Oklahoma, just right down the road. WD had made a deal with their neighbor who previously had his vehicle occupying one side of the garage to move so that he could have the stolen Roadster and the Ford V8 both parked in the garage. But Bonnie didn't like this idea, however, thinking it was pretty ridiculous to bring another stolen car to the place whenever they were already trying to keep a low profile. But Clyde said he'd just use it for a robbery and leave it someplace else. The argument was pretty intense, however, because Bonnie and Clyde had a physical fight. He apparently knocked her across this room a few times, but Bonnie kept getting back up and going for more. This would not be the only noise disturbance that took place here, because what the Barrow Gang didn't know is that the Joplin police had already had their eye out on the place. You see, the Barrow Gang were anything but quiet people, staying up late hours of the night, drinking, playing cards, and coming and going at random times. To the neighbors, something just didn't seem too right about this. But the straw that broke the camel's back is whenever the Joplin police had gotten a complaint about hearing shots in the apartment. You see, Clyde was here in the garage one night cleaning one of the BARs that had probably been taken from the armory whenever he accidentally set it off, misfiring a quick burst of shots that immediately alerted the neighbors. Well, this is more than enough to get the Joplin police to investigate the apartment, so the Missouri State Highway Patrol and Joplin police decided to raid the place. The law thought that the 5 mysterious people who had been residing there were selling bootleg liquor, so a 5-man team was assembled and they headed to the apartment. The squad consisted of Highway Patrolman G.B. Collar and W.E. Grammer in the lead auto, while Joplin policemen Tom DeGraff and Harry McGinnis rode in a separate vehicle with County Constable Wes Harriman. Buck had spent the morning getting his Marmon's gas tank filled and his oil changed, just pretty much getting ready for the trip back. And around 4 p.m., Clyde and WD take the Roadster out to go rob something. Around 4:15 or 5 p.m., Buck had finished working on his car and drove it around to the back before they left. Blanche was soaking her clothes in the kitchen sink while Bonnie was sitting in the center of the living room rug, recopying some poetry she had written. Bonnie was having Blanche boil an egg for her when Blanche took out a deck of cards and started playing solitaire to calm herself down. Blanche had been feeling nervous all that afternoon. When the egg's done, Blanche gives it to Bonnie and they hear someone in the driveway yell, "Stop." It was Clyde and WD. They came back for the sedan because they had burned the motor in the Roadster. Clyde and WD were in the garage unloading the guns from the Roadster into the sedan. They were shutting the garage door and then suddenly 2 cars swerved onto the curb and driveway. All of a sudden they all heard what Blanche later described as something that sounded like someone had turned a machine gun on the place. That was the sound of Clyde taking the life of Wes Harriman. Harriman was killed trying to duck into the garage, managing to fire 1 shot as he fell beside the driveway. They then heard Clyde yell the phrase, "Oh lordy, let's get started." McGinnis then hops out and fires 3 shots into the garage window, possibly hitting WD with one of those shots. Clyde then returned fire, hitting McGinnis in the face, left side, and right arm. When McGinnis drops in the driveway, DeGraff gets out of the car, snapping off a few shots and picked up McGinnis' revolver and ducked around the side of the garage. Collar took cover behind his car and Grammer ran around the building and met DeGraff. DeGraff told him to go find a phone and call for backup. Buck ran upstairs and urged the girls to leave because the police were there. This is where Blanche ran into WD, who had been shot. He fell onto Blanche and Blanche caught him bracing herself up on the doorframe. He kept saying, "Blanche, they shot me, I'm dying, please do something for me." WD had left Clyde all alone in the garage, and Buck started down there to make sure his brother was okay. By the time Buck reached downstairs, the shooting had stopped and Clyde was hollering for everybody to come down so they could escape. Blanche helps WD onto the back seat of the sedan, then sees the body of Wes Harriman lying on the garage floor. At first she thought it was Clyde. Clyde says get in the car, and whenever Blanche gets to it, he asks for her help to move it out of the way. Just then she sees another man, the body of Harry McGinnis. As they pushed the officer's car out of the way, it started to roll back down the hill, pulling Blanche with it. By the time she let go, her and Clyde were in the middle of the road and getting shot at from across the street by Collar. Clyde got lucky. Instead of one of the bullets hitting him, it actually hit a button on his shirt. Blanche is freaking out and is running down the hill, but this time Clyde's not next to her, it's her dog Snowball. And whenever Blanche stopped running, Snowball kept going, and that was the last time Blanche ever saw that dog. So somewhere out there, some kid probably adopted that dog, having no idea whose it was. Buck is standing in the doorway, yelling for Blanche to come back. That's when Blanche thinks of all the important things still in her purse. But before she could get upstairs, Buck grabs her and takes her to the car. Everyone piled into the car, Clyde stepped on the gas, and they made their escape. Once again, slipping through the fingers of law enforcement and taking the lives of 2 officers. This time, instead of leaving with something, they left quite a bit behind. Following the shootout, Joplin police swarmed onto the scene and found what the Barrow gang had left behind. They had found quite a bit of weapons, including 4 rifles, a shotgun, a pistol, and a BAR, a purse belonging to Blanche, which inside was a marriage license for her and Buck, the title to their car, and a criminal pardon issued to Buck by Texas Governor Miriam Ferguson. They also found clothes, several rings, sets of earrings, a guitar, poetry, cameras, and most importantly, rolls of undeveloped film, which would be sent to a lab for immediate processing. Joplin police sent out bulletins urging lawmen in neighboring counties and states to be on the lookout for Buck and Clyde Barrow. Also identified was Blanche and the women with Clyde. And interestingly enough, no reports or news mentioned W.D. Jones at all. Pretty lucky. Later, a wanted poster was sent out offering $600 for information leading to the capture and conviction of the Barrow boys. That same day, the police got the photos back and history was made. The only photos of the fugitives people had seen were mugshots of Clyde and Buck from Texas. Now they had dozens of photos. The photos were made public on Friday, April 15th in the Joplin Globe, and a new wanted poster featuring Clyde with Bonnie, but Buck not mentioned at all, but Bonnie's name was on it. The Globe posted 3 photos to the front page. Clyde with Bonnie, Buck, and then himself. Then the photos become even more famous and gain even more attention whenever they go to national news wires on April 15th. Now, after a bit of exploring with my dad, searching for bullet holes, ricochet marks, or really just anything, we spotted a rug in the garage covering up some dirt. After a little bit of research, we found out that these older homes have something called a privy pit. Kind of just an unconcreted dirt patch that people would use to put oil or trash or just whatever. Naturally, of course, we dug. We found 1930s toy cars, old pottery, an old button, some broken whiskey shards. These finds were truly amazing, but whenever I went upstairs, that's when my dad hit the jackpot. It may look like nothing at all here but just a chunk of metal, but upon closer looks, and after a good clean, it was clear what we had. What he had uncovered was a spent casing from a military-issued BAR round. The same exact gun and bullets that Clyde would have had in his possession. Like I mentioned before, he did accidentally misfire one in the garage. Now what we believe is that Clyde probably swept that casing into the pit, or Blanche, with all of her cleaning, probably did it herself. Now of course this is just a theory and speculation of ours, but the evidence is pretty damning. However, in the comments let me know what you guys think. If you guys would like to hear more stories about the Jasper County area, make sure you give this account a follow. If there's any specific story that you want to hear, make sure you let me know in the comments. I also want to give a huge shout out to the property owner, Christopher Numb, who let me in here to film and do all this stuff. This place is also an active Airbnb, and I would 1000% recommend staying here. It is just so cool. All the rooms are vintage, and there's just little things that you can see in the house it's just so cool. That's actually how me and my dad found that bullet, is whenever we stayed here back in February. So Christopher, thank you so much. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. We've all seen the famous Route 66 roadside motels in the movies, but did you know that Carthage, Missouri still operates one? And an original one at that. I'm Aiden Chambers, I'm a local historian, and behind me is the Boots Court Motel. It was the year 1931 when Lloyd Boots had built Boots Cottage Court in Eldon, Missouri, which inspires his kid brother Arthur Boots to make the Carthage location. Arthur opens a place called the Red Horse Service Station. Then in 1939, Arthur and his wife Alda open up the Boots Court, using the old Red Horse Service Station as the office, with 8 rooms including carport parking beside each room. Here at the Boots Court, you could rent a room for the cheap price of $2.50 a night with a radio included in each room, which, as you can see here, is still included. The hotel has had many owners over the years. In 1946, a few years after divorcing Alda, she ended up with the building. She ends up selling it to Plez and Grace Neely, who actually expand the motel by 5 rooms, including these 4 double queen rooms in the back to accommodate post-war travelers with their families, and a few additional changes. In the same year, Arthur builds the Boots Drive-In, which offers all-day breakfast and becomes the home of the KDMO radio broadcast Breakfast from the Crossroads, hosted by Lee Crocker. Some famous celebrities have even passed through and stayed here, including Clark Gable, staying here not once, but twice. First in 1942, staying in room number 6, but again in 1947, meeting a friend and signing several autographs in room number 10. Something else you might notice is the missing room number 13, and that's actually not a mistake. That's due to the superstition of 13 being a bad number. The Boots has survived its several different changes and hands over the years, including low-income housing, a 2003 demolition and redevelopment development attempt. The building's condition even got to the point where it was listed as one of the most endangered roadside attractions in America by the Society for Commercial Archaeology, and among the Missouri Alliance for Historic Preservation's most endangered buildings in the state. However, things are starting to look up in 2011 because preservationists Deborah Harvey and Priscilla Bledsaw purchased the motel and removed the roof, restoring the neon. The sign is restored to the original Boots Court name by the original sign maker. I mean, they really didn't cut any corners with making it feel like it did in its heyday. In 2021, the nonprofit Boots Court Foundation is established. With that, the motel is purchased from the two sisters and extensive rehab efforts are taking place. The next year, it's placed on the historic registry, and rightfully so because they've done an amazing job restoring this beauty back to its original look as close as possible. Definitely still sticking with the old classic Route 66 look. Fast forward to now, and all 13 rooms are available to rent, with visitors staying from all around the world. The former Sinclair service station now serves as the motel's check-in office and gift shop. Another thing you'll notice is how short these shower heads are, and that's actually not a mistake. Arthur Boots designed it this way because women's hair in the 40s was stacked and couldn't really get wet. Like I said, they've done just a fantastic job at recreating that classic Route 66 motel feel. If you haven't stayed yet, I 1,000,000,000% recommend you do. The motel is usually pretty booked, so it's great to get your room as early as possible, and the staff are just so friendly and they shared a ton of history with us. Also check on PBS's website for an interview with hotel manager Jeremy Morris. It's a super well done and informative video. I learned a lot of the facts shared here from that interview and their amazingly done website. So, if you're passing through or just want the experience, will you be booking your room soon? Let me know in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. My father and I were looking at this old photo when we noticed these little houses off to the side of a building near Webb City. So of course we told our pal Scott Sarley, and we all three went to figure out if these were still up, finding not one, not two, but all 4 buildings pictured. Well, kinda. We found the foundations. Though the little huts are now gone, this rock building still stands. This wasn't our only find, however, because as we kept walking, we started to see old bottles and other small vintage items. We stumbled upon a ton of these green glass medical vials, different sizes, colors, I mean, they were really pretty. As we walked further, the ground started to tell its own story. The building pictured here is not just any ordinary building. Many lives were saved and taken here. This was the Jasper County Tuberculosis Hospital. Miners' consumption, widely known as tuberculosis, was a vicious lung disease that was contracted through breathing in the air from the mines, inhaling the silica dust, and their living and working conditions didn't really help either. It affected the miners and their families. So for that reason, the Jasper County Tuberculosis Hospital was built, constructed on a 40-acre tract of land located 1.5 miles north and west of Webb City, donated by James A. Doherty. The hospital doors opened in August of 1918, and the building was constructed with bricks and stone, including 125 beds, modern conveniences, and sleeping porches for patients that needed fresh air. As mining in our area slowly came to a stop, so did the use for the tuberculosis hospital. The hospital closed around 1956 after years of treating the sick. The building was later renovated and became Elmhurst Nursing Home, later being torn down after the construction of the nursing home just north of the original building. This one right here. The building would have sat here in this now parking lot. But the question is still unanswered. What were these buildings? What purpose did they serve? Well, after doing a bunch of digging, I learned that some of the other hospitals had these small buildings usually off to the side. These were called tuberculosis huts, or TB huts. They were used to treat patients in isolation from everyone, with a lot of glass to get patients as much sun as possible. And as you can see here, these do have quite a bit of windows on them. So that's what I think these 3 are, but this one I'm not too sure. I assume it was a storage shed or something for storing supplies. 1 minute, scratch that. I actually do know what one of those are now. Thanks to a nurse over at Webb City Health and Rehab, she explained to me that one of those was actually a crematorium, which was absolutely insane to me. I'm not sure if these bottles were from the tuberculosis hospital or from when it became Elmhurst, but either way, it's pretty obvious to tell that they are from either one. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, make sure you press that follow button, comment which story you'd like to know more about next, and I will see you history buffs later. Let's talk about Les Ulmer, the guy that ran a pool hall here in Webb City that had a few risky games if you knew who to talk to and where to go. I'm Aiden Chambers, I'm a local historian, and in this episode we're going to be talking about a character that I've come across quite a bit. From reading stories about Webb City and talking to some of the older folks in the area, his name has come up quite a bit. This guy right here is Lester Ulmer, better known as Les, and Les ran the Webb City Recreation, or the pool hall as it was commonly known, at 110 West Doherty, behind the Unity building. Les operated the business from 1944 to 1971, and the pool hall has been described as a home away from home for many a young man in Webb City. Downstairs were the pinball machines and pool tables lined in a row down the center of the room. This is where dominoes were played, snooker, punch boards, all those old fun games. Some teens would even sit in here and listen for baseball scores on the radio and watch them get marked up. It cost 5 cents per game for 8-ball and a penny a minute for billiards or snooker. When the game ended, you'd yell out rack, and here an employee would come and rack the balls, collect his nickel, and you would be ready to go again. Like I said though, if you knew who to talk to and where to go, you could get in on the real money games upstairs, just like the gambling spots we've talked about here on the show before. Upstairs is where the other games were, like slot machines, craps, poker. There was also a small area for lounging. The place actually did end up getting in quite a bit of trouble a few times. One raid even had gambling equipment being tossed onto Doherty Street and hauled away, because you see, Les was not allowed to be running those types of machines. So of course the place was caught more than a few times, but sometimes Les would be just one step ahead of the law. You see, Les was sometimes supposedly warned by some sort of law official that the place was going to be checked for anything illegal. So Les was usually prepared. I talked to Jerry Seward, a local whose dad ran a moving truck business in the area, with Les being a customer quite a few times.
But the deal with Les, my dad, we had a moving business called Rex's Transfer at that time. What happened is Les would call my dad middle of the night, says, well, we've got the feds coming, so we need to get some of this stuff on the trucks. They carry that stuff out of the upstairs and down into the trucks. It took them about an hour and a half or somewhere in there. Daddy would take them out to a cornfield somewhere or whatever. I don't think it was just my dad involved. And I think we had one other driver. He would drive the other truck. That's what happened there. They loaded up in little bit, no time, and then took it off to the cornfield. But I think the feds warned them every time they was going to come. Then after they inspected the place, they said, well, this looks all right here. So, they just, they took off. And so Daddy got the trucks and moved back in there.
These kind of stories are always just my favorite to cover, because I, of course, love the old classic secret gambling room stories. And from what I've heard of this guy, he had quite a bit of a legacy. I made a Facebook post asking some of the older folks around the area if they had any memories of Les, or even his pool hall. And I was honestly shocked with all the responses I got. From what everyone says, Les was a really nice guy, very active in the community, and knew quite a bit of people. So pretty much just your friendly neighborhood Joe, but even Joe sometimes wants to party. Les unfortunately died in 1971. He fell down some stairs and suffered a blood clot and died after undergoing surgery the next day. This would be the end of Webb City Recreation, or the pool hall, as Les's wife Bo, and I am so sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, would sell out. But the memories of the young men who thought that they were pool sharks and the tobacco smoke-filled rooms have definitely not left the minds of the older crowd. I want to thank Jerry for sharing all the amazing cool stories that he had. It's just super great and knowledgeable, and had a lot of great stories of the area. Also, I just want to thank you guys for almost 9,000 followers. I never thought that we were going to get to this point. I'm just so glad that so many people are interested in the Jasper County history. That just makes me so happy. I am seriously thankful for each and every one of you. Once we hit 10,000, I have a very special announcement, but I'm going to keep that secret. It's very hard to, but I just want to keep that secret until then. So definitely stay tuned for that. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.
Now the batter is Mickey Mantle.
Mickey Mantle.
Mickey Mantle. Mickey Mantle.
Mickey Mantle. Mickey Mantle.
And here's Mickey Mantle. He's my favorite.
Even if you don't know much about baseball, you've definitely heard his name. The Mickey Mantle, the switch-hitting legend from the New York Yankees. He has many nicknames. Arguably one of the best players to ever hit the field. With a career and story like his, you'd think he grew up somewhere bigger like New York or California. However, what some people don't know is he actually spent most of his childhood just right outside of Jasper County. Right behind me is his childhood home in Commerce, Oklahoma. I'm Aiden Chambers, I'm a local historian, and in this episode, I'm going to be discussing Mickey Mantle's time spent around our area. Also some stories from a man that hung around the Mick himself. Mickey Charles Mantle was born on October 21st, 1921 in Spavinaw, Oklahoma, soon moving to Commerce, Oklahoma, where Mickey and his siblings would spend most of their childhoods. You see, Mickey's dad really wanted him to play baseball. His father worked in the mines, and whenever he would get home, he would often practice with Mickey. Here he would pitch right-handed while Mickey hit left-handed, and his grandpa Charlie would pitch left-handed while Mickey hit right-handed, helping him become the switch-hitting legend. Mickey was so good at baseball, he was even nicknamed the Commerce Comet. Mickey got his professional start with the Baxter Spring Whiz Kids in 1948, which was a semi-professional league out of Kansas. Yankee scout Tom Greenwade had come down to a game one night to watch one of Mantle's teammates play. This is when the switch-hitting legend was noticed by Tom. Mantle had hit 3 home runs, including one from each side of the plate. Greenwood was pretty impressed, and he would return on Mickey's graduation day just a year later. This is when he would sign Mickey onto a professional contract with the Yankees for $140 a month and $1,150 a month for a signing bonus. Mantle played for the Yankees minor league team in Independence, Kansas for a while, but after that advanced out for another team right here in Jasper County. Mickey had advanced to a C-class minor league team known as the Joplin Miners, mostly playing shortstop for the 1950 season and hitting 26 home runs and 136 RBIs. Mantle actually played right here at Joe Becker Stadium in Joplin, formerly known as Miners Park. After this, Mickey would go on to train at the Yankees training camp before making his debut with the big leagues, playing with the New York Yankees on April 17, 1951 at just age 19. However, playing for the Joplin Miners wouldn't be the last time that Mick was in the area. After Mickey started to make a name for himself, he often came across endorsement and investment deals. And in 1957, longtime friend and business associate of Mickey's, Harold Youngman, came to him with an offer Mantle couldn't refuse. You see, Youngman was known as a highway builder to many during a time whenever the interstate was being put in. In 1957, Oklahoma had opened the Will Rogers Turnpike running from Tulsa, Oklahoma to the Missouri state line just a few miles from Joplin, so smartly wanting to take advantage of this opportunity, Mantle and Youngman formed a cooperation and built a hotel on the south side of Joplin near the new interstate interchange. Mantle had 25% ownership while Youngman and other associates owned the rest of the hotel. This new hotel was Joplin's Holiday Inn. The Holiday Inn Company had actually given the rights to use Mickey's face in signage and advertising, making it Mickey Mantle's Holiday Inn. Everyone wanted to stay at Mickey Mantle's hotel, and the place proved to be a pretty big success during its years of operation. The hotel opened in 1957, and the sign boasted of a swimming pool, cocktail lounge known as the Dugout Lounge. Its walls were covered in photos of the Mick, memorabilia, awards, and carpets had Mickey's jersey and signatures all over them. There was even a gift shop where you can get all the Mickey Mantle or baseball swag that you could ever want. This was seriously a true Yankee fan's dream, and the Mick frequented the place quite a bit. Mantle and Youngman ran the place for a few years before ownership of the hotel was sold in the mid-1960s. Mickey's name and belongings were removed from the hotel, and it continued to run until 1980 when it was demolished. A Lowe's is what sits at the site now. Items from that place, if you can actually find any, are pretty valuable now. You know, very collectible and super rare. I was lucky enough to view some menus, business cards, and other memorabilia from the hotel in a collection that belongs to a very cool man with some amazing stories. This right here is Tim Belk, and Tim has been in the sports collectible business for a number of years now, and actually has a sports memorabilia store in North Park Mall here in Joplin. Now, Tim has actually spent some time around Mickey Mantle in his later years, along with some other famous sports stars as well. We chatted for a few hours, and he shared some amazing, interesting stories with me.
I've been in the sports collectible business for 43 years. I was a little kid, 6, 7 years old, and we was out at the Teamsters. And my grandpa was president of the Teamsters, Floyd C. Webb. My dad was Jack Belk, other known as a race car driver in the area. They had a big meeting out there, and I got to meet Mickey Mantle. I was standing there, and my dad met him, and I got to meet him, and was tugging on his pant leg, asking him if he was Mickey Mantle. Later on, I think it was around '88, we were out here at the Loma Linda deal, and Mickey was in the bar out there. I asked him, got to talking to him about it, and he remembered my grandpa, and he also remembered my dad because he'd seen him race a few times at the local racetrack. So he told him about it. He said he actually remembered this kid tugging on his leg because of who I was with. I actually got a relationship going with him and was actually able to contact him some times after that to get autographs and things, and I was able to, it's kind of how I stayed into the sports business, meeting him, and then it led me to meet other people like Bob Feller, Enos Slaughter, and other guys that I was able to work with. I promoted shows in all the malls and had them guys signing autographs. So it was kind of a lot of fun, you know, kind of a neat story. I remember one time I had went somewhere with him, and we got back. I helped him in his place out here at Loma Linda, and he took his shoes off. Stinkiest feet I ever smelt in my life. I said something to him about it. He laughed. He goes, "You ain't the only one that said that." I actually seen him laugh a few times, and I enjoyed working with him some. Did a few autograph signings with him and stuff, and it was a lot of fun. A lot of good history there.
Mickey Mantle is still remembered to this day as one of the best players to step onto the field in baseball history, with some of the most legendary stats to prove it, finishing his 18-year career on March 1st of 1969 with 536 home runs, 7 World Series championship wins, and a .298 batting average, and just so many more accomplishments. It's so crazy to think that one of the most legendary baseball players in American history grew up in this house right outside of Jasper County in Commerce, Oklahoma. Also, the stars all aligned coincidentally, and we saw this sign on someone's fence on our way back in Joplin.
Eden, how the did you spot that?
So next time you pass Lowe's in Joplin or Joe Becker Stadium, just remember you are passing by some baseball legend history. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. These are some of my favorite artifacts from Jasper County, Missouris history that I've seen that you can go see too. This right here is a miner's helmet that President John F. Kennedy had sported during his campaign tour in 1960 when he did a speech at the Joplin airport. This helmet right here is on display at the Joplin Museum. A piece of arm bone from a Civil War soldier with a bullet still lodged in there. This is from Carthage's events in the Civil War and was discovered in Carter Park. Its home is still in Carthage, now at the Civil War Museum. Also, some other cool items from there that piqued my interest included this fragment of a letter from the legendary outlaw herself, Bella Starr. She wrote this to her son and daughter while in prison, and several, and I mean several, Civil War bullets found in Carthage as well. How could I not include some artifacts from my favorite Joplin saloon, the House of Lords? Some matchbooks with neat art on them, cups, pens, maybe one of these cups was donated by this handsome guy, who knows? But my absolute favorite artifact has to be the last known House of Lords painting in existence. One of several paintings to hang behind the bar. I did an interview with the person who owns that you might want to check out. The owner behind it also got this business card from the 3rd floor of the House of Lords, which, if you've done your homework, you know exactly what happened on the 3rd floor. Then some beautiful necklaces with a pretty dark backstory. These were recovered from the garage apartment on Oak Ridge Drive in Joplin after the shootout with the Barrow Gang in April of 1933. The Bonnie and Clyde Ambush Museum in Gibbsland, Louisiana also has Clyde's sunglasses he wore when he was killed, and disturbingly, some of Bonnie's hair. Alright, let me know if you guys want a part 2. Bye!